phones.
Yeah, they were a thing. Definitely had one of those, out of well, probably in college, but definitely used it a lot more in my first employment. Um,
Oh, yep.
yeah, which was right out of college. I was on the road, so had to have the communications,
There we go. I
and
think
so that meant, yeah, big chunky bag phone with the antenna on the roof and all that jazz.
I don't envy you in the bag phone. That's for sure.
It worked really well, though. I mean, you say that, but it was in some regard as a phone, I feel like it worked pretty good. And then
Yeah.
we went downhill, and now we're back to integrating your phone with the entertainment system in
I
your
mean,
car. So
honestly,
it's back to
man.
better again, right?
Honestly, I kind of like that though, man. CarPlay is really nice. Being
It,
able
it is.
to just cuss out Siri whenever you want, and she's like, "I don't like that. Stop."
Yeah, well, and it's the same thing on the Android side of stuff too.
Right, right.
Uh,
So is Gemini better? Like, is it like markedly
better?
better than?
Better how?
Well, I mean, in any way whatsoever, because I've seen people just say that, oh well, Gemini is much better than Google Assistant ever was, but it's missing this or it's missing that, and that's just one of those things that if Google sees a profit in it, will definitely put some time and effort into actually developing out those features.
I'll be honest with you, I don't use it much. Um, Really just I was fine with the assistant for the amount of stuff that I needed,
Yeah.
you know, like call so and so.
Right.
Okay, got
Yeah,
that, right? That's no problem. That stuff works.
Right. I use that stuff all the time. I mean, adding tracks to a playlist when I'm driving, call so and so, like you said.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a whole lot of value in, and it's taken me years to get there, right?
right.
Siri's probably been fine for years, but I've never
Yeah.
used it until probably this year. And I'll ask it to do weird off the
Mhm.
wall stuff, like in two songs, add this song, because like there was a song coming up that I wanted to hear.
Yep.
Like, and Siri will do that, which is better than I thought it would be. And then, but then it trips up on the playlist I want it to play or something like that. And it's like, I don't know that phone number. And I'm like, dude, that's not a phone number.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
For the most part, though, I really don't have a lot of problems with that stuff. I should
Yeah.
probably use Gemini more, I guess,
You
maybe.
need
I
you
don't
need
know.
to use Gemini so that you can tell me like how much like Her, the movie Her, it
Mhm.
is. Like cuz
Yeah,
I don't think I want a conversational AI, but I mean, in some situations, I can't think of the best way to machine talk it. So you can ask Siri to do stuff, but you have to sometimes be very specific in how you ask it. Otherwise, you will confuse it, right? So the benefit I see in something like Gemini is to be able to take my rough idea of what I want to happen and actually turn that into a real request. Whereas Siri would trip up on that, something that's slightly, and I use this word, smarter. I know it's not smarter, but something slightly smarter to kind of parse what I'm talking about and, you know, pull meaning from that. That's the value I see in AI on the phone. Outside of that, it's very touch and go. I don't know that I would need it in any other way. Aromatic, Vizamp, welcome. We're about to talk about some deep, deep, dark technical Yubikey bits, but first I need to talk about bag phones. We need to finish this
yeah,
bag
we
phone
needed to. Yeah.
conversation.
So, yeah, back in the day, that was actually not bad, and
Hey,
like the
Zook.
speakerphone on those actually worked pretty good, and so
Yeah,
you could do the whole hands-free thing, right?
right. Because that's what started the whole. There are laws here in Texas about hands free and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
here too. Yeah.
Nobody follows them, but there
Oh,
are laws that straight up say if it's not hands free, you can be pulled over and cited, right?
right.
And if it's egregious enough, if you're doing other bad things, you'd be carted off to jail.
Well, yeah.
But
Hey,
But
you gotta
yeah.
keep it between the mayonnaise and the mustard, and if you're not doing that, then,
Oh my God, I've never heard it put that way. Are you serious? Is that a
yeah,
thing? Right,
well,
because
yeah,
the
I
the
mean,
yellow line in
the
the
mayonnaise
center
yeah.
and then the white
Mustard
line
on
on
the
it.
left, mayonnaise on the right.
Whoa. I will probably steal that and use that forever. I appreciate that one.
Sure, I mean, as long as it's between the navigational buoys, you're good.
Like I appreciate that my car has this thing, little cameras, I guess, and it'll tell you when you're like drifting. It like the steering wheel will rumble like
Oh, yeah.
like a
Mhm. Hell yeah.
joystick, man.
Yep.
So I appreciate that because it's like it's a good half a foot earlier than it would rumble on the rumble strip, right?
Right,
Or
right.
more, maybe even a foot more. I don't know. My frame of distance is odd in a car, but
Well, ahead of time, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so, before everybody in the car feels it, I can feel it, and then I can correct it. So that's really kind of nice. But mayonnaise and the mustard, wow,
Yep.
never
Yeah, there
occurred
you
to
go.
me. Never occurred to me. Um,
Yeah, no,
but
that's one of
yeah.
my favorites.
So as you were saying, yeah, we came full circle, and now we're into fully
Yeah, back to
automated,
better
or
again. Yeah,
yeah, back to it can be hands free, and you don't have to take your eyes off the road
right.
to chat to somebody. But I do like CarPlay, right? And so will Gemini and Apple's new one coming out in iOS 18. So I like how they announced it, where it was like, we've got generative AI and baked into your phone, but not yet. But yes, but not yet.
It's coming, but
Yeah,
not yet.
exactly. Yeah, they really kind of phoned that one in, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Uh,
they called ahead.
they sure did, man. Yeah, screen that call. But
Mhm.
eventually, we'll get Smart Siri, and she'll be able to do the same things Gemini is doing. But yeah, I need you to test it out. I need you to guinea pig it
Alright,
for us, and see if you
I'll
can just have a full on conversation with Gemini, and see where we're at with this.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll have to be careful what I tell it, but, sure.
No, you got to tell it your deepest, darkest secret, so they can put that as part of the AI model. And then in a couple of months, you can ask, like, hey, remember that secret I told you, Gemini? And it would be like, yes, I
Yeah, yeah,
do.
so does everybody else.
That's everybody at Google and the 365 affiliates that we have, and their 7,455,000 affiliates
Right.
that they have. Did you not read the fine print?
Yeah, so I don't have a Pine phone. I mean, I'll be
You're
honest, I
supposed
actually
to read the fine print?
No,
I guess
absolutely
so,
not.
yeah.
Google's banking on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just checking,
Let
because I thought the idea was you weren't supposed to read the fine print.
that is correct.
that's one, possible choice. Yeah, stick your
It's
head
a bad choice, but
stick
like,
your head in the sand, that's cool.
I mean, it's a bad choice that everybody makes, and
Right,
everybody
yeah, you
well,
makes
get
the same
Gemini to
choice.
read it to you. Yeah, then you're all set.
well, so like,
Oh,
well, the other aspect of it is like, again, not a lawyer. I don't know anything about anything, but
Mhm.
like, it is pretty hard to defend that you agreed to something without knowing what you agreed to.
but
That's true.
it was presented to you, sir, and you basically signed by clicking I accept. That's the same as a signature, obviously.
No.
Yeah, that
I'm
doesn't hold up all the time, that's for sure.
no, I'm
I mean,
glad.
that's the whole reason shrink wrap licenses aren't a thing.
Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff doesn't
Mm.
actually hold up in court. But I mean, it doesn't
It's still
mean
scary.
right. But
Mhm.
for it to hold up in court, that means you have to retain a lawyer and
Oh
go through
God.
the whole entire thing. Otherwise,
Yeah, no.
exactly. So, did you agree to it or not? Well, I don't know. I can't afford the lawyer to find out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Go down that rabbit hole.
Going back to the Pine phone thing, though,
All
Leo
right.
has one.
I do. I do. I need
I'm
to. I need to poke it more, though.
I'm sorry.
Is it that
We'll
bad?
see.
Yes.
Well, the thing that was
Parts of it.
bad for me is that like it would drain its battery really really quickly, and then it would require not just a charge but to physically be plugged in to turn it on. So
Yeah.
it
The Pine phone, the original Pine phone is not great.
yeah.
It is it is difficult hardware to support, made by a chip maker that doesn't care about open source,
Mm,
and is kind of a mess in general.
yeah.
That's why the
Yep.
PinePhone Pro uses a different chip. The PinePhone Pro is not great either, but is at least somewhat supportable.
Right.
The
Okay.
original PinePhone is horrible. I have both. I don't like either that much.
Oh, really? So
Yeah, yeah, well, that's fair.
did you ever get to the point where you were using either of them as even a pseudo
Oh,
daily driver?
oh heck no.
No, not even
Like,
close, huh?
look, the battery life was miserable. The thing
Yeah.
got hot, and it was slow as balls.
Yeah, I believe
So,
that. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're behind.
Mm.
Anything that you put out like that is going to be behind,
Well,
yeah.
hardware-wise.
it's not just that, right? Like, so we have an unusual. I mean, we could very easily, if we really had the effort and energy to like pull the crap together, like we could actually support current generation phones because there are classes of flagship phones where all the source code is available for the drivers. There's even some partial or full upstreaming already done, and really it's shoveling all the board support drivers from Android into something that works generically. Um, like if you look at the Pixel devices, they're all derivatives of the Exynos chip, which was upstreamed a long time ago. A
Hmm.
Right.
lot of the configurations around the Tensor cores, the Tensor chip. I shouldn't say Tensor core, that's NVIDIA. The Google
Oh,
Tensor chip,
Mhm.
NVIDIA Tensor and Google Tensor, super confusing. But the Google Tensor cores chips are actually somewhat supported in the Linux kernel.
hmm.
So the device trees that are needed to say, hey, this is what this board looks like, and all this other fun stuff, those may not all be present, but all the actual bits and bobs to make the hardware work are probably there, or at least mostly there.
Right.
Um, I mean, just look at, for example, this new Windows on ARM devices from Qualcomm and the
Mhm.
various,
Yep.
the WOA devices are all have been getting working support in Fedora in the matter of weeks. Like
Yeah.
the first stuff started in like midway through 6.10. A big chunk of it's done in 6.11, and 6.12, which just started, will have most of it done. That is pretty freaking fast. And that's because there's nothing really special about most of these mobile devices. At this
Right.
Yeah.
point in time, most of the core stuff around them is already part of the Linux kernel in some way. They just need to be hooked up and told. The thing that kind of sucks about them all is the device tree stuff. Because we don't use real UEFI, we don't have SMBIOS, we don't have ACPI, we don't have hardware probing, we don't have plug and play, we don't have any of that stuff. We are literally back to the freaking 80s where we have to define and describe how the frick everything is connected and then bring it back online in this thing. And this is device tree.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And you bring those device trees, and of course there's going to be some random drivers or some permutations or some modifications or whatever, because OEMs like to make weird hardware out of even weirder hardware. So like, but that's not the issue. The issue is fundamentally, uh, no one has the care and the time and the capability to shovel all that through to get it to work, right? I have a Pixel 7a. I bought it last year for pretty much the purpose of kind of playing around with AOSP and kind of trying to understand what a close to upstream hardware
Yep.
platform looks like. I found out I don't like AOSP very much as a user experience compared to the Samsung UI. I actually very much
Oh,
prefer it.
wow. Are
So
you telling me that it
Okay.
flipped? Is this
Wow.
like a recent thing? So, okay. I remember back in the day when they used to call the Samsung thing TouchWiz, right?
yeah,
That was
it's
yeah.
not called the Samsung One UI. I vastly prefer the One UI over the
Really?
Pixel experience.
And
Wow.
I
so
have
Okay.
so the AOSP experience is the same thing as like what Google ships on their flagship phones to people.
so the actual AOSP experience is hot garbage because the applications that are part of AOSP haven't been maintained for years. But the Pixel experience is mostly AOSP with some replacement Google branded apps.
Mhm.
Um, the thing is, though, again, we're going on the tangent. I'm going to follow the tangent. The the Google Pixel experience I found to be unsatisfying compared to using Samsung's experience or really any other of the OEMs. I find the Pixel experience to be subpar. Hot take. Ergonomics matter. And one of the things I really like about the Samsung phone experience is that they actually put a lot of effort into making one-handed operation work without hurting yourself with the large phones. And now I have a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, which is the biggest phone that you can buy.
Yeah, that's too big.
It
I
has
can't go
10
that big. That's
Yeah, that is too large.
Well, it's
I can't do
6.8
it.
inches, so it's not that much bigger than a Pixel, actually.
It's a
Okay.
lot of thumb gymnastics, though. That's for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
so that's the thing about the Samsung phones, right? They have a one-handed mode. And so they'll
Uh-huh.
do things like shrink all the UI elements and shift them to a corner where your hand is. Or they'll make it so that when you do the flicks, that they'll do more movement, more kinetic movement than you would normally get. Things like that. And also, like, just the basic usability of most things, like outside of the Samsung keyboard, which I truly despise. Um,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty solid. I also am finding that I really enjoy using the S Pen when I just feel kind of
Yeah.
whimsical about how I want to just do things. Like
You want to
I
be
can
fancy.
I can write in my cursive and it understands how to turn it into typed text.
Oh no,
And it
no,
Oh,
no!
gets it
Don't do
right.
that. Write it in cursive and
It,
send it exactly that way.
oh, I've done that too. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. If you're
But
gonna
like
be fancy, be
it
fancy.
understands my cursive.
Yeah.
that's
And
impressive.
cursive one of those things that is generally unique between individuals
Oh, yeah.
because like it's loops and and like
Mhm.
hence the name cursive. It's curves and loops, but it's connected lines, and people draw differently. And
Yep.
so I was very impressed that it was able to handle my handwriting fairly well. And
Yeah, there's humans that can't make out cursive handwriting, so
oh
that's
my
you're
gosh.
right. That is impressive.
And that's why I ask people to submit stuff to me typed out.
Yeah.
I ain't
But
going through
like
that.
but kind of getting back to the point is that one of the things I came to appreciate was that so my Pixel 7a is like a 6.3-inch phone. It's not that much
Yep.
bigger than my old Galaxy S10.
Yeah.
And my S10 was I think 6.2, so whatever. But I found that it was actually harder for me to use that phone, even though it was physically the same size, because the ergonomics were poor compared
Hmm.
to my S10. And
Yeah.
this year, my S10 stopped getting. It was the last year of security updates. So it's like, okay, I have to replace this phone. So I got an S24. I would have got the normal S24, but I decided that I was going to go big on this because like I wanted to have the pen. I wanted to try out some of this other stuff.
Right. Right.
I also wanted to have 1 terabyte of storage because you now you don't have SD cards anymore in phones.
Right.
And so
What do you
I went.
store on your phone that you need 1 terabyte? I barely just moved from 128 gigs to 256 gigs on this last phone, and I feel like 256 is great because when me and Dan sit down to do a video, those 2+ hour videos come out to about anywhere between 15 and 20 gigs, right? So
Yeah, about
and I
that.
can store multiple before I even start to like 10 before I even start to. Well, okay, maybe not 10. Close to 10.
I don't think you could do 10. Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting
But
up there, like 6 at least, and then I have to start worrying about should I delete some of these or something like that. So what do you
which is
store
basic.
that needs a terabyte?
Well, actually, I don't need a full terabyte, but I wanted to
Okay,
have enough wiggle room
got it.
for. So the idea was, so like one of the things I had on my SD card on my Galaxy S10, because my S10 had an SD card, had a 512 gig SD card on
Yeah.
top of 128 gig of local storage.
Yep.
The SD card had a pile of movies and music and stuff like that I
Yep.
could listen to offline
Mm-hmm.
and watch offline while I'm on a plane, for example,
That makes sense.
because I want to be able to do that. And moving to 1 terabyte local storage also means that now I can actually pre-download a bunch of stuff in Crunchyroll and
Okay,
Hulu and
right.
whatever, and be reasonably okay that it'll store because those things never worked on SD card storage. They always had to go to the internal storage.
Oh,
Yep.
really?
And yeah, no, because the DRM things and whatever.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
the crap stuff. Yeah, like so.
You can put
Moving
your
to
own movies on there, just not the DRM stuff.
Right, exactly. And so I had VLC on there, and I could put my own stuff from my own media library and whatever.
Sorry,
But
paying
like,
customers, we're gonna make it really difficult for you to actually watch our stuff.
right,
Absolutely.
but because the S24 Ultra that I purchased has 1 terabyte of integrated storage, I have plenty of room to be able to have pre-download a bunch of movies and
Right.
stuff like anime that I'm catching up on in Crunchyroll, and then watch it while I'm on the plane.
Hmm.
And this also gives me room for, also if I have apps that are games, right? Games, what they do is they have a small launcher application, and then when they start,
Oh,
they download a crap load of data afterwards.
yep.
And so like you get the same crappy like space is completely used up experience that you get on a PC game just on
Yeah,
your phone.
that's right.
Uh-huh.
I know that
So
feeling.
Yeah.
everybody should know that feeling at this point. So I moved to 1 terabyte. I decided to go 1 terabyte because I didn't have an SD card slot, and it's inconvenient to carry around a thumb drive or an external hard drive and plug it in through the OTG port on the bottom, the USB port.
Hmm.
So I just went with 1 terabyte. It was like, and also because I pre-ordered the phone, it was actually I could get 1 terabyte storage for the price of the 512 gig storage model. So I was like, okay, sure, we'll do that.
Yeah, I just checked my phone. I've got a 512 and I've got 428 gig free.
Oh, see,
Well,
you've got plenty of space. Look at all the room for activities you have.
I could
You could
do more with it.
you could install one whole Genshin Impact.
that's
I
true.
guess.
One whole Genshin Impact.
That's it, just one.
Like, yeah, but like seriously, right? Like, Dan, I don't think you travel.
I
as much
don't.
as
I
do.
don't travel, right? I mean, but if I did, like if I was going on a trip, I'm
Yeah.
right there with
My
you.
man
wanna
Right.
have
walks
the
to work.
ability.
He doesn't travel.
Yeah.
Well, oh.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah, but like, point is because I travel a lot and I go to
Yeah,
conferences and
that
I'm
makes
on
sense.
6+ hour flights on a regular basis now. I need entertainment,
Yeah.
and I have actually been stuck on planes that I don't have an entertainment console like at all. Like I was earlier this year on a flight to Seattle, which is by the way a 4.5 hour flight from New York to Seattle,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one
and the
side
plane
to
was
the other. Yeah.
yeah, but the plane
Hmm.
was old enough that it didn't freaking have
Oh, the
it didn't have
entertainment.
the in-flight entertainment.
So when you put
Nice.
your headphones in, lay your head back as far back as 45-degree
As you
angle
can.
forward, we'll let
Yeah.
you, and then you just try to
Yeah.
close your eyes, man. Just close your
I
eyes.
can't sleep on planes, so I have to do something else.
Yeah, no, there's no
So
sleeping. You just close your eyes, and then the kid behind you kicks your seat, and you're like, I can't.
people are actually a lot more courteous on planes than the movies tend to show. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
that part's fine. It's just like 4 hours of
Oh
boredom
yeah.
Yeah.
is a lot.
Yeah.
That's
So
a couple of movies, hopefully.
Yeah.
right, so I throw a couple of movies, I copy a couple of anime shows, and I've now started trying to take the opportunity of actually catching up on my anime backlog. So I'm like preloading a bunch of stuff to Crunchyroll and then watching it while I'm on the plane because like I can't. There's not enough space for me to pull out my laptop most of the time anymore. I actually need to like buy a new laptop that's smaller now because there is physically not enough room for me to have the laptop without it digging into my chest.
Ooh.
Um,
Oh yeah.
so it's uncomfortable now to use my laptop on the plane.
So you
But
bought an iPad.
oh,
Yeesh.
I don't want to do that.
I
Not
believe
even a
it.
laptop the same size. That's
Well,
what you
wait,
want.
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
The answer leads me to believe that you might have considered it at least for a little while. I don't want to do that, but
I have thought about it.
so
I have thought about it.
and
But I try really hard to stay out of the iOS ecosystem because once you're in it, you
oh
pretty
yeah,
much can't come
yeah.
out.
You once you fall in, you're just in. I am
Yeah.
living proof, and I don't know how much I should say, but I want to bring up the privacy aspect of this because Vizamp was talking about this. How do y'all feel about? I know how I feel, and I'll go on a tangent about it. But how do y'all feel about Google and just getting them being able to see all the things, right? Like all the apps that you install. Generally,
Yeah.
the Google harvesting.
Well, I mean, that's
I'm gonna.
sort of where I
I'm
was going with the Gemini thing. I
Right.
mean, Yeah, I
They
don't
already
know
have your
how I
data
feel
though,
about
Dan.
that.
They don't need
Yeah,
Gemini
but
to
it
steal
feels
all of your
weird. It
secrets.
feels
They already
weird.
have them all.
So
So
I'm gonna have a really, really hot or cold take depending on your point of view, but I suspect for most people it's gonna be a really hot take.
yeah,
I don't care anymore.
I
It
know.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't.
hard. It's hard to
Well,
care. I do
well,
though. I
no, no,
mean,
no.
so
I mean, I care in general. In principle, I care. But the thing is, I don't care about Google holding my data specifically for a couple of reasons. First of all, Google is the only service that I have had that has not actually been hacked, that hasn't had my data leaked, that has not
Mhm.
shown up on the dark web, which is actually a pretty freaking good sign. They are actually the most responsible when it comes to their account management and security practices. I mean, even my Microsoft account's been hacked once. So, like, well, and I think I'm just being lucky by the fact that it's only happened once because Microsoft has shown
Yes.
that they're not good at the security thing.
Nope.
Um, and like I actually go so far as to say if something provides Google SSO, I will use it over any other option
Mm.
because the Google SSO is way stronger than anything anyone else can come up with.
Buy
Um,
that too.
yeah, so like when my point of view at this point is like so I even pay for Google One. Like I pay for Google
Mm.
services. Um, my email load is so heavy, no one else can take it. Gmail is barely
Yeah,
able to handle my daily influx of email.
I
Uh,
believe. Yeah.
and I am a regular user. I won't say an efficient user. I am a very heavy user of Google Calendar.
Mhm.
I'm a big user of Gmail, of Calendar. Um, I use the account services. I use Google Chrome because like if I'm already using a Google account for things, the Google Chrome actually is mostly going to be fine. Insofar as AIML services go, um, while I'm not paying for Gemini or using it at this point in time, I have tried it out, and I do actually find it more useful than some of the other alternatives. And Gemini for Google Workspace, like the rest of Google Workspace, is data isolated.
Yeah.
So I am actually really okay with using it for that purpose, especially for someone like myself who actually has a hard time starting to write documents or presentations. And I can use that to help me refine my thoughts and turn it into something that I can work with. Because, like, I have a hard time getting started. Once I've gotten started, I can kind of keep going. But,
Right.
and that's where those assistants can be very helpful.
Right.
So overall, I don't really worry about Google as much as I do, say, Microsoft or OpenAI
Oh yeah.
or
Well,
or some of the other
we see the way that OpenAI and Co tend to operate, and I don't like
yeah
that one bit.
yeah
But the way that you
right.
feel about Google is a lot of the way that I feel about Apple. I mean, especially with their recent. So I was kind of joshing about the Apple AI stuff or whatever that's
Oh,
going to
the
be.
Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, but the fact that all of the stuff, so all the data that you feed into Gemini, right? The same kind of data that you would feed into the Apple AI stuff is going into a specifically tailor-built data center that every single piece of hardware goes under a an electron microscope to verify that
Wow.
the chips that are promised to be there are not just there, but are exactly as designed, as requested. So, I mean, I don't know of any other company that has gone that far to build a
I
data
would actually
center.
I would not be surprised if Google already does this
I,
because
that's a lot of
the
good
thing.
marketing that that they're missing out on if they don't.
Well, why would it be good marketing? No one knows what it actually means to scan it at that level.
Right, but
Like
what people might understand though is that we're going the extra mile and putting this stuff under microscopes to verify that your privacy is of our utmost concern, right? Like people understand that. They
well,
won't
that's not what Apple is actually doing by scanning those things. They're just
what?
making sure it's not being tampered. Same reason Google
Well,
does it, same reason Meta does it.
That's a
Like
type of security though.
it is a
right,
type of security,
right.
but it's not correlated with what their messaging is about. And I think this is the reason why no one else really talks about it, because like this is standard fare when you're at the scale where you're buying
Sure.
buying data center equipment at this level,
Yeah.
and all of your equipment is custom.
Right.
Like Google's computers for their data centers are all custom.
Oh,
So
yeah.
are Meta's. So are Apple's. Like when all of your equipment is custom, you have to take extra precaution to make sure your supply chain is not hacked.
Right.
And like there was literally I think an article a couple years ago about the mere insinuation that of something like this, and like everybody freaked out about it. And it was a Bloomberg article. It turned out it wasn't true, it wasn't happening, but like everyone flipped out for us a little bit. And like I know for a fact that like some of the cloud provider type people that I worked with were just doubling back and like, we know this is not true, but now we're more paranoid, and because now somebody's written about this, it could become true.
Right. And I think that's a
And-
lot of it, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that a lot of it is marketing, and I know that even most of it is security theater, but that's the thing. Like, Apple is a fantastic marketer. They'll do it every single time. That's why they've dominated the market. It's why they win. They are fantastic marketeers, and they'll do it every time.
Well, they've also had the same marketing people for almost 30 years.
I
That
mean,
helps a lot.
yeah,
It keeps working. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean, why
well-
do I change it now?
Well, so but like that's the thing. But now that they're starting to have people that aren't the same people, I don't think have you noticed how many marketing missteps Apple is now making?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like squishing all the stuff into the iPad, destroying centuries of culture on screen, and offending people the world over. Twice. Not even once,
Yeah.
but twice.
Yeah, that one was good. That one was
Right? Like that's showing a change, and like Apple has a real problem right now because their people are old, and they're not, and the leadership is not letting them retire. Like they're of course retiring anyway, but like what's happening is that Apple's like, okay, well, you're not doing this anymore. Can we make you do a smaller scope of thing and give you more money and more prestige for doing less, so that you just stay on board because we need you?
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that Apple is in right now. And like no other company has that problem. And arguably that's a bad problem to have,
We'll see.
because like nothing lasts forever.
Oh, for
No,
sure.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will
And no
see.
one lasts forever.
Oh,
So
yeah.
going back to, where do you put your trust, I think.
Right.
I think you have to examine what the goal is behind the entity on the other side. I
Sure.
think certainly Google, they're an advertising company. So their main goal is to scoop up all this data so that they can, serve better advertising to you.
Yeah.
And in turn say to the advertising companies, look, we're getting all these ads in their face. This is our numbers, so that they can in turn get more advertising dollars.
I think
I
it's
think that's a
important
lot of their motivation, right?
Sure, but I think it's also important to note that Google is not a monolithic entity. Actually,
It is not.
This is a big part of the problem, because everyone assumes that Google is this advertising giant and that's what they do. But like the problem is that is not Google. Google is this aggregation of multiple teams with competing interests and desires. Like,
Which leads
Oh, yeah, they
credence to
stomp
the
on
fact
each
that
other
they need to
sometimes,
be
too.
multiple
Yeah.
companies and pulled apart.
well, I mean, or at least subsidiaries that can operate more independently at the very minimum.
We'll see
Right.
how that one goes.
Well, they'll
But-
kill it off, so it doesn't matter anyway. They won't make
Right.
it to that
But
point.
while I know
but
they're
the
not a
killing-
huge monolith, the idea that they're doing the same thing OpenAI is doing, except they own all of the stuff, right? Like Google owns all, like a huge segment of the blogging sphere. They own pretty much all of video. They have podcast, like all of this stuff, right?
Sure,
And
sure.
so
but like
they're able
the
to
point-
do with Gemini what OpenAI wishes they could continue to do, but now they're being stopped by law. Google already has it all. So they can already
Well,
play
so-
that game, and they're going to win.
So the point I was trying to make is that you have to look at all of these different Google products as if they are basically different companies in operation. if you notice, there isn't actually a coherent terms of service across all of Google.
Nope.
Each product has their own TOS.
Yeah,
and
but the vaguer the
actually,
better.
No. It's not about vaguer or whatever. It's about each team has their own different set of rules. The Workspace team that develops Google Workspace, which includes Gmail, Calendar, Google One, the whole works, has a different terms of service, a different modus operandi, and a different data and a different business model than, say,
Yes.
YouTube does, than, say, AdSense does, than, say, Google Search does, than, say, like, this is the point I'm making. There are parts of Google that I don't use, and I don't really have to worry about those. And there are parts of Google that I do use, and I understand what they're doing, right? Gemini is part of Workspace, which is why it has a data protection policy at all.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is its own business and has its own rules.
Mm-hmm.
AdSense is its own business and has its own rules. AdWords is its own business and has
Right,
its
but
own rules.
what I'm getting at though is that the head of the guy that's doing Gemini, the top guy for Gemini,
Yeah.
would not outright say that he's not training Gemini on all of the entirety of the YouTube library. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's
And then YouTube will subtly dig back saying that this is not allowed and don't do it.
no,
They
they
just won't
will
say
not say that. They will say that they're not allowing people to just do that. They will not straight up tell you that Gemini will not just train
But
itself
they
on
are-
everything out there.
But they're also not saying that they are. And
Which-
that is a big that is important. There is a big difference
What?
between the two.
Okay,
Because-
yes, outright saying that
Yeah.
you're doing it and not saying that you're not doing it are different things. But what I'm saying, though, is that if you're not, the question was bold-faced and straight asked to the guy, are you
And they're
doing
not
this?
going to answer.
And he
They're
hedged.
not going to answer straight. There's no
I
way
know
they're going to
that.
answer. You know why? Because they don't know.
Exactly.
Well, that's true.
Exactly. But that's my point. Is that
And that's
whether
my
they
point.
know or they not, whether they know or they do not, the fact that he can't answer straight is part of the problem.
Sure. But I'm also saying
Yeah.
that that's also why you have to look at the different parts of the different Google services as if they are different companies and put your trust based on that. Don't
Right.
think of Google as a giant monolithic company that has a single overarching vision. They're not Amazon. Amazon has a single overarching vision. They have a whole like hierarchy where they make everyone do the thing and that. Google doesn't have that. When you
Well,
don't have that,
yeah.
everything is chaos.
Well,
Like,
that
this is
it
why
is
Chrome
chaos
OS
at Google. There's no question
Yeah.
on that.
This is why
And-
Chrome OS is falling apart and turning into Android 2, another Android derivative, right? Like
Yeah.
so like no one at Chrome OS is coming out and saying it because they can't, but it has been hinted enough places that's like, for example, the Chrome OS team is pulling out of Wayland. They said that they're pulling out of Wayland, and the only reason to pull out of Wayland is if you're moving to Android and using Surface Flinger instead, which is Android's display system.
Right.
Right? Like, if you're doing those things and you can't talk about it, you're going to have other ways of saying it. But also, it's not up to you because Google is weird organizationally in that no one is told that they can and can't do something.
Oh yeah, inside, yeah.
Yeah. And that is an important thing to think about. When you go to, for example, Microsoft, there is a set of rules of things you can and can't do.
Well, you're right, but I feel like that's sort of devolving as well into the
I
same.
mean, Microsoft's
same
falling
sort of
apart for
thing.
other reasons. Microsoft
Yeah, but-
has the whole
but they're doing-
Microsoft.
I see the same things happening over there though too. They've got some silo teams that are starting to split up things, and they aren't communicating on the inside.
Sure.
And then they sort of stomp on each other a little bit. So
Well, so that
I-
part's kind of on purpose because, like, the way that Microsoft's culturally structured, at least historically, I'm not sure exactly how accurate it is today because I've never worked at Microsoft, but I've talked to Microsofties about it. Is that essentially all the teams compete for attention at the leadership?
Yep. Well,
And that includes
so you see
budget. It includes budget and things like that. And as a result, like, I think there was a comic that was drawn once of like, this is what Twitter looks like, this is what Facebook looks like, this is what Microsoft looks like, this is what Google looks like. And Microsoft's culture is all the teams have guns pointed at each other. And that is because
pretty
all
accurate.
the teams are fighting for attention from the
Office will
leadership.
always win, as will Azure.
But you see some of
Mm,
that in Google too. They've often had competing things pointing, doing the same stuff, and then eventually they just kill it off.
And they all die. Oh no.
Yeah. But I mean, going back to it, so right, so Visamp's got a bunch of things here in the chat, but essentially he's asking about Samsung. Yeah, so Samsung's motivation is to sell you more products.
yeah,
Period. That's it.
yeah,
That's their motivation. They just want to sell you more stuff.
yeah. They don't, and this also kind of comes back to like this is what Pixel does. The Pixel business just wants to sell you more Pixel devices.
Yep.
They don't really care about anything else. Samsung is just happens to be a completely independent company with the same motivation as Google Pixel, which is the ATP unit inside of Google that handles devices, right? The other thing about Samsung is because Samsung has no other businesses holding them up, they're very, very much at the mercy of their margins. And so they have to be very, very careful about how they do development, how they do integration, right? But it also means that they are they're they follow the trends of device makers and not the trends of services companies. And so
Yeah.
that has some that has some interesting differences.
Well, they're
It's
concerned
what
about perception because that's what
no
makes
what
the product sell. So they want to make it a good experience. They have a motivation to make it a good experience so that they can continue to do that.
I mean, I think everybody has a motivation to have a good experience unless they hate their users.
Well, there's some that don't care.
I know, I know,
Sometimes I
I
wonder,
know.
do they hate me as a user? Because it sure feels like it.
I mean, that's how I feel when I have to use Microsoft Teams. And I feel like, does
Uh,
Microsoft hate me as a person? Because
yeah.
like this
That
experience is terrible.
that horse is dead on the internet, man. I think everybody's beating up Microsoft Teams to death, but yet it still
But
persists.
it's a good example of a user experience that is definitely not user oriented. No one cares about what you think as a user because you don't got a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, whereas when you look at things like, if you look at things like, for example, Gmail and Proton Mail and things like that, their user experiences have changed over the years and they've refined and adapted. And a big part of it is that most of their user base are people that willingly choose those platforms.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at Outlook, it has basically been the same crap for like 10 plus years because no one willingly chooses Outlook.
No,
Like,
it's a
ever.
business decision.
Right. And business people don't actually try the things that they buy.
Oh God,
They
no.
just they they get wined and dined and then they buy it and then you all suffer. That's how that works.
Well, and there's a network effect there though too,
Right.
because I mean everybody that's on there, well, okay, well, all these Fortune 500 companies or the government or whatever, I mean, they're all doing it, so I should too. There's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, well there's also FOMO too,
Yeah.
right? Like the whole the whole IML mess with the chatbots is all FOMO. Like almost entirely FOMO. Like even freaking Bixby chat, which is a thing on the Samsung
I
phones.
can't believe they chose Bixby as the name. That was the worst decision. I get that
Yeah,
Don't
that's
you
even
can't
strange.
I don't even get me
you
started
can't
on the stupid
even
name.
you can't even I get that like they chose a name that wouldn't accidentally be said every now and then. But I mean Bixby? No.
Well, I mean it's a butlerish name.
Is
I
it?
suppose.
I guess.
Shouldn't we call it Smithers or something?
Hey,
Well, they
hey
can't.
now.
Simpsons.
Oh. Call it
They can't
Smithereens.
because
That's close enough.
Yeah.
no. But like
I like it though.
when Apple did Siri, they made it a name and did that thing. Like Samsung responded and created Bixby, which is
Except
terrible.
I have a coworker named Sherry. Don't you dare. Don't do it. And it does wake up sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, it is.
But like the worst was Amazon using the word Alexa. Like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, because Alexa's a real freaking name.
Yeah,
tell it
it's
to stop,
very
Dan. Tell it to
common.
stop.
I
Alexa,
got headphones
stop.
on. We're good. We're good. I got headphones.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But like
No, this one's
that,
muted anyway.
yeah, and the point being, right, like is the device makers, if they're trying to figure out a way to widen their margins a little bit, they will try to build an experience that they think people want. And a lot of the device makers tend to follow the flagships on figuring out what experiences people expect. Apple followed Google in this particular case because it turned out that what Pixel was doing with machine learning on devices to improve camera experiences, to improve automate voice activated automation experiences, to do no code experiences on the device was super compelling. And so they added it to the Apple devices with Apple Intelligence. Right. And now this is trickling down to all the other devices because it's like, well, these two people have just staked their claim that this is a thing that matters. I don't care about any of that stuff, so I turn it all off. And the easiest way for me to turn it off is just set it to Google Assistant and then turn off Google Assistant, which is an incredibly easy thing to do on a Samsung phone. And that's what I do. Apple Intelligence will probably be like Apple Maps. Because fundamentally, it's a very difficult place to start from nothing.
Oh, right, where it'll just it's going to hinge on OpenAI until they decide that they want to actually build out their own. That's just how that's going to go for now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder if Apple's going to take like a stake in OpenAI because of it at some point.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. Because they certainly didn't take a at least meaningful stake in Google Maps until they decided that Siri was good enough, right? I mean, Apple Maps was actually good enough to forge out on their own. So I think this is going to be the exact same way, where you're going to end up with a true blue Apple model eventually. But I mean, they've got to act now to be part of the whole, I'm Bixby too. So, but they'll get there.
The other thing is that Apple device sales have been slowing globally. And so they need to pick me up because they've super saturated the US market. They don't outside of the US market, there isn't actually as much of an appetite for the product as people think they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could just look at the Android market for that. I mean, people are using phones that can't do much, but that's kind of the point. Apple kind of painted themselves into a corner by having really good devices, and nobody needs to actually upgrade. Like, it still works until they finally fall off and don't get updates. And guess what? People continue to use them for like 3 more years until they physically actually break. So, yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's not fine for Apple.
Yeah, it's not fine for Apple.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, it's not fine for Apple, and it's not fine for the users either. Because the incentives become perverse over time.
Well, right. That's every company, right? That is quite literally in shitification, right? You run out of real runway, and then you end up in a situation where you got to make money because line must go up, and then you just start slamming at stuff, and you're like, oh, maybe we do the AI thing.
So here's the interesting thing. You know how people talk, as you just said, Leo, like people talk about how line must go up. But do you know what happens if you're saturated and then you just don't sell anything for a while?
Well, line probably stagnate, and then eventually line may go down. And the may go down part is what scares people.
And it's rapid.
Line goes down fast.
Yeah, it's rapid.
It's pretty fast. Because remember, that line is an acceleration curve. It is not actually based. It's not actually based on
reality.
Market. No. It's not based on market penetration. It's based on movement.
Yeah, how far it's going one way or the other, yeah.
Right. So if you go 2 quarters where you sell, like, say, let's say you have a, box of donuts, and you go 2 quarters and you sell 10 boxes of donuts. The 3rd quarter, you sell 5 boxes of donuts. And the 4th quarter, you sell 1 box of donuts. And then the next year, you only sell 1 box of donuts a quarter. And then you stop selling boxes of donuts because no one needs your donuts anymore. You failed.
Right.
In the market. Like, the thing people don't understand is that the underlying driver is that no one cares about saturation. They care about movement.
Growth.
And so, no, not growth, movement. That means that if you can steady the course...
Isn't movement just a measurement of growth?
No. Growth is if it's going up.
Right.
I'm moving my hands. You can't see it because I have the
No.
video off. But that's
Right,
Yeah,
but
it
line
could go
must
down.
go up.
no line must at least line must be at least flat. Being flat is the bare minimum you have to maintain. The problem is that when you're saturated, you can't do that.
Yeah, there is no going up. They're even selling the same because you've
Right.
already sold them all.
Right. Once you've sold them all, you're screwed because the problem is that it's not just about the money that you had before and the money you have now. It's about the money you need to have in the future. If you're not
Yeah, because you
selling
planned for it.
anything, yeah, if you're not selling anything and your curve goes down, you're also just not making any money, period. And you can go straight into the red. And that would be bad. Like a business like Apple's is basically contingent on maintaining its revenue stream at exactly the levels it has. And this is why they're so scared. This is why they're trying so hard to pump up their product. Like the M3 line got quickly skipped over to the M4 because it wasn't selling well. Like, because
But the
people aren't
M1s are
buying.
fine. Yeah, exactly. Like the M1s are fine.
Oh, the product wasn't bad. It was
The problem
just
is it's not better.
yeah, it wasn't
That's the
better.
problem.
Well, I mean,
The
it
problem
was
is
it was better on paper. I mean, the
no, it
battery.
wasn't.
Yeah, but not on sales.
Yeah, it
No,
wasn't
that's what I
better
mean.
enough.
Like the chip was slightly better. I mean, just like Intel, every year there was a 5%
Mhm.
increase
And
in
Intel's
performance, right?
and
But nobody cares about that,
Intel's got the same problem. That's
right?
why they literally laid off 15% of their staff.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's it.
Because
That's the result is you start having the layoffs. That's when you see those things pop up.
right. And so this is like it is really one of the things that has irritated me a little bit is how everyone simplifies this. Oh, line must go up or it must be about growth. Growth is not the thing that matters here. It's sustenance. Because
Yep.
when you get to a certain level and you start doing this stuff, you plan for it, you budget for it, you build for it, you do things around that. And when that starts dipping, you can't do the things you were doing before. Things start failing. Things start having to be cut. And this is why it's never about growth. Growth is great. Growth is fantastic. It means you get to do more. But what is important is sustaining. If you can maintain at least a flat line, then you're fine. They're not going to punish you for having a flat line. They will punish you if quarter over quarter you are not doing as good as you did before.
Right, but so I think what I mean by growth, though, is that when you saturate a market, when no one else is buying your stuff, you need to come up with a new idea, grow that idea, and let that then sustain everything that came before and everything that's coming after, right? Like, that's what I think I mean by growth. That's why I
So
think...
you're talking about churn. You're thinking churn instead.
Sure.
Churn is when the existing base is essentially replacing or coming in and out. Your churn rate, which is how much you're moving product within the base that you already have. And if you're not churning product within even your own base enough, then like this is why it's such a big deal that Apple talks about upgrades or improving the existing experience and comparing against the products they've sold before. I don't know if you've noticed, but they've really stopped talking about competitor products in their presentations. They primarily talk about competing against themselves.
Well, they don't
against
really
their older
have
products.
They don't really have much of a competitor, at least in the laptop segment. Not yet, anyway. I mean, Snapdragon is starting to come out with these ARM chips that might do the same amount of battery life, that might have the same amount of performance, even though that they've tested below, right? Like GPU performance is just non-existent on a Snapdragon chip in any comparable measure against an Apple chip, right? So, I mean, at least on that segment, they're not comparable. And it's a very similar situation on tablet stuff. You don't get the same amount of battery life on a tablet, on an Android tablet that you would on an Apple device, right? I mean, you don't. I think a lot of the performance stuff is even in the same. I don't pay attention to much of that anymore, but I think you're kind of in the same boat. They're just apples and oranges now. They're competing ecosystems, not competing hardware.
Yeah. Well, so the point I was trying to make is that the reason they don't talk about their competitor products as much anymore is because like if you try to compare them, they don't win. And that's why they don't talk about it. It's not advantageous to them to talk about comparing, say, an iMac or a Mac Mini to, say, a Vostro or an XPS, because the XPS will win.
Well, what I'm getting at, and I mean, is
So,
that
like,
they're competing ecosystems and not necessarily competing hardware. I think that's
No,
why there is no other ecosystem like the Apple
but the
ecosystem, for
problem
better
is,
or for worse.
but for the desktop and laptop space, the software is typically multi-platform, the ones that
Right.
anyone cares about.
Sure.
So, like, it doesn't. So you do have an apples to apples comparison. They just don't want to make that comparison anymore because they don't necessarily win. They only compare against the things that they would win against, and the only things that they win against is their older versions of their own products.
I mean, well, I would hope so, right?
Well, no. Well, sometimes that's not even true. That's part of the reason that the M3 didn't sell very well, is that it basically wasn't remarkable compared to the M2.
Yeah.
Well,
Wasn't
right,
enough of a
right,
change.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like the Intel chips we were talking about before. Like, yes,
Right.
they are slightly better, but is it enough to upgrade? No, it never was.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you gotta wait 3-4 generations. Well, in
Yeah,
previous
you got to skip
Intel,
the generations
there's
exactly
some
to make
there's some
make a
changes.
noticeable difference.
Right, there's some changes now where maybe it'll turn some heads, but I mean, it's 3 or 4 generations before you would ever need to actually upgrade, unless you were the type to, ooh, new shiny, gotta upgrade, right?
And Apple's also competing against the fact that in the PC industry, Apple included, most computer purchases are done by businesses, which
That's true.
means that the computer purchases are on a cycle.
Right.
And
Yep.
because of COVID, they went from 3 years to 5 years. This is hurting everyone. And so this is the first year. Remember, 2024 is 5 years after the first Apple
Yeah.
Silicon Mac. This is the first year where they have a chance, a real shot in the arm of actually moving product on the computer side. This is actually part of the story that they've been setting up for the past few years, where they're always talking about their older products in the context of selling new ones. Because when they come around this year, because later this year there will be M4 Max that they're going to talk about. Like, I'm pretty sure they're going to have an event next month about it. They haven't announced anything, so I have no secret information, but it's obvious at this point.
Going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. They will absolutely. You're going to find what'll be really, really interesting is that you're going to find that they're going to do comparisons to M1 and M2 in those presentations.
Yeah.
And the reason is those are the computers they're actually competing against that they can win.
They don't really have a choice. They've already set the death date for all the Intel ones, so they have to measure it up against the first generation silicon stuff. I mean, there's the secret information. It's the end of the road for everything that's not Apple Silicon.
Well, we don't know that yet either.
Well, I mean, you can
because
slap Linux on it, but there are death dates for even the last manufactured Intel laptop. There are death dates on those already. I don't know what they are. We'd have to
Yes.
look them up. But they're death dates.
Yeah. They're death dates. They're like 7-8 years from 2019. So like we're a few years away from that.
Exactly.
But,
But I mean, if they're on these cycles, then I don't know why anybody would go and buy an Intel thing. They were either already on the M stuff or they're looking to be on the M stuff if they're going to stay with Apple at all. So I think the comparisons are good. I think comparing to M1 is inevitable. It has to happen.
Well, yeah, because that's ultimately like when you look at a market where you have a pigeonholed market where you know that this is the kind of customer base you have and you can't really grow out of it, but you need to be able to move product to sell it. You have to win those customers over to spend money on newer versions of the thing that they already have. And so that's really where Apple is kind of moving for the desktops and the laptops, but then on the phones and the iPads, the marketing is different. It's about attracting new people with different things. And to some extent, cannibalizing their Mac.
Baby.
Right. So they're cannibalizing their traditional demographic for Macs with iPads.
Right.
And the reason for that is that iPad users are stickier than any other product that Apple sells.
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of it is because Apple never came out with an actual real tablet. Like for a desktop. Like, so you know how the Wacom tablets, right? Like there never was one of those. They just made an entire computer attached to the tablet. And it's vastly superior to absolutely anything else that exists in the world right now.
There are no other tablet competitors.
Nope.
The Apple Pencil's fantastic.
But this is what I mean, that this is why they don't compare. This is another one of those, this is the hardware argument here. The other was an ecosystem argument, but this is a hardware argument. There is no comparison.
There's just nobody.
Just absolutely nothing. There's nothing out there that even remotely competes with the performance of an iPad when it comes to actually drawing. Even the middle of the road, not even the iPad Pro, even the middle of the road iPads are vastly superior than something you could pay twice as much for on the Android side. Just vastly.
And I think you could go further than that and say it's not just the artistic abilities that you have there. I think the performance overall is way better than anything you'll find anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean,
and the iPad also has
even if you're doing other things in there, you're like, no way is the Samsung stuff. I mean, they're probably the next closest,
right?
I would have to say, and they're not even in the same ballpark.
Well, they're not trying for that anymore, right? Like if you look at what Samsung,
because they can't catch up.
Exactly. I mean, but that explains the marketing against, at least in that segment, why Apple just compares to itself. There's nothing in the same category.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the important thing for Apple is that they have to come up with some way to sustain their existing movement of product. They don't necessarily care about growth. I think they haven't really cared about growth for a long time because they don't need to. Their margins are wide enough. They have a captive audience. What they have to do is churn that audience to newer versions of their product. Yeah. And that's the thing that they've been struggling with over the past 2 years.
Well, stop making really such good hardware.
When you think about it, they haven't forced it, and they have the opportunity to do it with the software, but they don't. They support the multiple old versions, like 3 back
for years. Way more than that. Years and years and years, Apple has supported these devices. I mean, until they're ground into dust. Some of these phones were supported, like actually supported with software updates for like 7 or 8 years, and Google barely started to even whiff at the idea that they might support something for more than 2 or 3 years. And now it's 5 or something like that.
7 years now.
Right, fantastic. So now they can compete on longevity as well. So at least in the device market, Google's going to have the same problem. Oh wait, they won't, because they don't sell Google devices. Like, not that they don't sell them, but they don't move them.
Right, exactly.
Samsung wins every time.
Right. So if you look at the 3 big makers right now, Apple, Google, and Samsung, all 3 of them are now at parity when it comes to software support, when it comes to warranty services, when it comes to third-party services.
Does Google even get to play in that entire argument though? Because what Google is like the Linux market share of phones. Like, they're a single-digit percentage.
No, they're not.
They're small, but they're not that small.
They're not that small?
I think no. I'm pretty sure they're actually quite a bit. They're like 9% in the globally, which is actually fairly
okay. So I wasn't too far off with the single-digit percentage though.
Well, they're edging towards double digits, which is not bad for a product line that's only existed for 5 years.
Linux is edging toward 5%, and they've only existed for about 30 years. So take that, Linux naysayers.
Yeah.
Well,
we're getting there, okay?
But like the other thing to think about is that Pixel is a relatively new brand. If you add in Nexus and all the other stuff that they've done, as well as the other brands we don't talk about because they're not first world brands.
HTC.
No, not HTC. I'm talking about the fact that Google actually makes prefab phones that people badge and sell for carriers in developing nations, and poorer countries in general. Those actually count in terms of the total Google market share for manufactured products, but don't count for the Pixel market share. Pixel market share globally is 9%. But if we add all the other stuff that they do, it's probably much higher, like probably closer to a quarter.
Right, but this is not the thing that they're developing for, right? It's certainly not the thing that they're advertising here, anyway.
They don't advertise here in the States, but they definitely advertise elsewhere about it.
Right.
And they do actually develop like the hardware and software thing. This was a program that they made like 9 years ago to make it so that good quality Android devices were available at lower price points. Like, this was the original motivation for them to start getting into manufacturing and device design. Like, it was not to make high-end devices. It was because all the low-end ones sucked. And so
They
they
still
started
kind of
making
do.
You can sell more of them though. I mean, so it's about volume there.
Right.
It's about volume. Right. And so this is why, I mean, Android has globally like a 60% market share.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, because Google's doing a lot of work on trying to make Android work at all of the price points because it matters to them that a smartphone experience is available. And it goes back to what you're talking about, motivations, right? The motivation for the Android experience to exist is to provide people a gateway to web services. And Google hopes that their web services are good enough that you will use theirs.
Well, if you put them up front in the
sure,
center, then they will.
I don't know about good enough, but they've taken a page out of the Microsoft playbook and they're just getting their way into the education system, and so everybody's used to it. And then when everybody ages out of the education system, they're going to use Google Docs when they get into the workforce. They've won.
The Chrome OS.
Yes.
That's the Chromebook model, right?
Nah, Chromebooks suck. That'll never take off. But the Google Docs thing, that 1,000% took off. It has taken off.
Leo.
There's some carryover there. They use
Leo. There's definitely carryover because I can say this fairly confidently. Like, an employer I worked at before was actually getting pretty close to making Chromebooks the default computer that you would get. And the reason for that is actually not because everyone wants to do web-based stuff. It's because it's already what kids were coming out of school knowing how to use.
Exactly.
So it was bleeding over into the workplace. What has actually happened over the last few years is a reversal of trends, where now Chromebooks have to get more powerful to run local applications.
Yeah, exactly. There was always going to be that
and
split.
I think they have to some extent. But
I mean, now you have $1,000 Chromebooks again.
Yeah, that's it. That's the problem, is we're not meeting that low dollar amount, the entry level thing anymore. We've bumped it up to regular laptop at that point.
Right.
And then it starts getting weird.
And then you're like, what do I need an i7, to do web-based
Honestly, the
stuff
most compelling reason now is that Google's offering 10 years of support for all new Chromebooks. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
there is no computer maker on Earth that offers 10 years of support.
Man, I'm afraid for the students that are going through elementary school right now, the type of Chromebook that they're going to be using when they're in their final year of high school, because it'll
10 years.
I was going to say it'll absolutely be the same exact Chromebook they were issued when they came in to second grade.
Right.
Like I had thousand because that's what these ISDs can afford. I 1,000% guarantee that's exactly what's going to go on. So while I think looking at the surface of it, yeah, it's great that they're going to be supported for 10 years, but
it's terrifying.
Unfortunately, that's going to have that carryover of, I mean, we're going to have this expectation of that type of performance, which I guess could be a good thing, right?
It's not really. So, like, you know how I know there's a lot of people who talk about, oh, we should keep the computers around long and you should, like, not throw them out and replace them every year or whatever. Like, which I get, right? I totally understand that. But I also did exactly the opposite, and I kept a computer around for way too long. Let me tell you how hard it gets to maintain hardware for way longer than the design and supply side lifetime. I have a MacBook that uses DDR2 RAM. Guess what I can't buy? The computer works fine, but guess what?
Yeah, there's no more upgrades.
Yeah.
There's nothing left for you. But also it comes down to a second order effect. What about energy efficiency? What about battery efficiency?
Not that either. Yeah.
Yeah. All of that stuff is just worse, right? Like, this is when I start thinking that maybe that 3-year rotation cycle thing that companies do is actually not the worst idea in the world, because that keeps you relatively close to peak efficiency for electronics equipment.
Oh, definitely.
It sucks that you have so much landfill stuff, but you could actually fix that problem too, right? You could take those 3-year rotations and put them out into places that could use them for another 2 or 3 more years. Then you can recycle them and turn them into either new products.
But it's cheaper to just throw them away.
Well, I'll tell you about that from a IT director standpoint, right? We used to do that, and at the end of the 3 years, rather than recycle them, we had other places that we could put them internally. And so
Yep.
they didn't make it to the recycling. We used them inside. Now, because we're not doing that, we're getting to the 5 or 7 years mark, and then they're no good. They're not good for anything. We can't
Right.
use them internally. So now for all of those machines, we're looking for something to replace them. So
Yeah.
it's actually worse for a sustainability model.
Right. And that was the point I was trying to make. The reason that actually started happening was because there started to become requirements about data protection where you had to physically destroy machines when you're getting rid of them. And
Yep.
if you're going to do that, you can't you can't really use most of those models anymore. And so they hold on to them longer, they become worse, they become worn out, and then you just can't do anything with them and they basically hit their lifetime of 0. Like I bought a MacBook when I moved here for my job 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago next year, but in next January, but like almost 10 years ago. That laptop I continuously used every day for 8 years.
This is the Mac?
That laptop is, yeah, and that laptop was stopped being really serviceable after 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was an Intel Mac 2014 MacBook Pro, and I really should have replaced it in 2017, but I didn't want to because the keyboard sucked on all the Macs at that point.
Oh, dude,
And so
I have a 2013 that we decommissioned maybe 2 years ago for the exact same reason. I'm like, dude,
Right.
have you touched that butterfly keyboard? Ew.
Well, one of
It
my
was
clients
terrible.
gave me one of my client that I have, like, so I have my own business, Velocity Limitless. I do open source consulting and engineering stuff. I have a client. They gave me a computer to integrate, to do that stuff with. It's one of the butterfly keyboard Macs, and oh my
Yeah.
god,
Gross, dude. Put attach an actual keyboard to it, and then
I
you'll.
did.
Oh
I
yeah.
attached an actual keyboard to it because,
Yeah.
like, oh my god, there's bad, and then there's the butterfly keyboard.
Yup, 1,000%. Apple makes generally decent decisions most of the time. That was not
Except
one
for
of
their
them.
keyboard and mouse. Well, their
No.
keyboard and mouse decisions have been stupid for decades.
No, the mouse one was smart because they made you buy a second mouse because you had to charge it from the bottom. You couldn't use it while it was charging, right? So you had to buy a second mouse to use it while that one was
Yeah, but
charging.
if you roll it back,
Stupid.
you roll it back one generation before that, you had the mouse that had the little tiny scroll wheel. Remember those little
Oh
ball
god,
Oh,
those
yeah.
things were so terrible. And the
Mash
scroll
those
wheel-
things with a hammer.
Wow, yeah,
and
those were
scroll
terrible.
wheels, those scroll balls broke
Oh,
so
God, they're
easily.
bad.
They
So
were
bad.
so bad. They were so badly designed. Like, I remember using one of those, and aside from getting actual finger cramps because they're very terrible ergonomically,
They're not. They're like this.
Yeah.
yeah. And aside from that, like, those things broke from the pressure of being used.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yep. Yeah.
when I was in school and those were everywhere. Oh my god, the sysadmins grumbled about having to replace them every year because they flat out broke after
They
like
just did
3
not
or
last.
4 months.
Speaking of line go up, I'm just saying they bought more mice, didn't they?
No, what you did was you took the ones off the HP machines that
Yeah,
came,
yeah, that's
you know,
pretty
they
much
came
what
with them,
happened.
and then
Yeah.
you
Oh,
went
yeah.
and stuck those out. In the lab.
Every Mac I ever had to touch ended up with a Windows mouse eventually because those things were $4.99 and they still worked. So why not?
Yeah, exactly.
It is sad that an $80 mouse lasted a whole lot less than a $5 one.
It's about the ecosystem, okay? It was about how easy it was to pair it up and Bluetooth.
And then before that was the puck mouse.
But it looked pretty.
Those were awesome. They looked cool, man. Like they looked cool.
One button mouse. You needed to use the keyboard to access most of the features you would
The right
use with
click.
the mouse.
Just
The
saying.
right click was, you had to do command click. The fact that that's still burned in my brain
I know.
is a terrible, terrible thing.
Listen, what they were doing was they were making sure that you weren't eating Cheetos at the same time that you were using the computer so that you wouldn't break your keyboard. See, Apple was looking out for you, man.
No, they weren't. That was not why.
They were. You're correct because people continued to eat Cheetos while they computed, and then they had to buy a new keyboard, and Apple won.
Although the keyboards back then were actually quite good. I liked those keyboards.
Yeah, they were.
But like the one button mouse thing was this whole idea that you could just kind of get away from having alternate commands in the user interface. And so you could get 2 clicks to the internet and you didn't need to do anything special to do it. That was like the whole shtick. You didn't need 3 clicks, just 2, and you didn't need to do anything special, and it was always obvious.
Yeah.
1 click to go to the internet, 1 click to connect. That was the thing. Including the fact that you had to actually go through a wizard where you typed in your AOL credentials to be able to log in to do the dial-up thing and whatever. But like,
You've got
you know,
mail.
oh my gosh.
Meh.
And the bundled Internet Explorer.
Oh
Right?
yeah, that one was terrible. Man, I have a lot of fondness for that one clicker mouse though. The square one, not the puck one. The square one with the square clicker inside. Like
Oh,
it didn't go all the way to the
ones with
edges.
the Performer ones.
I don't. I honestly, man.
Those were the Pro Max, not the iMax.
No, this one was connected to one of those little TV ones that like had a handle on the top of it or whatever, and the
I know which one
screen,
you're talking
the
about.
CRT screen was like 10 inches and black and white. So
Classic
like
Macintosh.
I guess I played Risk on it for
Yeah, that's the classic Macintosh.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I remember those things.
Yeah, this thing was
Yeah.
from the 80s when I was going through school in the 90s, but yet it was still working. I mean, it made me want to do my homework so that I could hurry up and get onto the computer so I could play Risk.
So you're talking about the Macintosh Plus, because that was the I'll just throw it here into the Discord chat thingy.
Hang on,
Macintosh Plus.
Okay, let's look at this.
I think this is what you're talking about.
Macintosh Plus. I want to look at this because this. You might be right. This.
I know what I'm talking about. Even though I wasn't a Mac kid, I know what it is.
It wasn't
Well, they were
quite
all around,
that
yeah.
mouse. It wasn't. Oh, maybe this is it. I want to say
You had
that
a couple
the mouse,
generations of that.
Yeah, the mouse
I
button.
mean, I briefly saw the Macintosh Classic for a little while as a kid, but like,
But this
they
is it.
quickly got replaced with iMacs wherever I saw them.
Well,
because
in our actual lab, they were iMacs. Like, they were definitely iMacs. But in my math class, this was in the back of the room, and I think it had like a couple of math games on it for kids that needed it, I guess. And oh, maybe this is it. Because look at that mouse. That button doesn't go all the way. I think this might actually be it. Yeah. And we had the little reader too. The reader off to the side. Yep. I think you found it. Okay, I need one.
Yes.
How do I get one?
eBay.
All right.
Very hard.
I think. Okay, how much is eBay going to sell me one of these for? Some exorbitant amount, right? Let's see.
Well, it
Macintosh Plus. Oh, Zook has one? Get out, dude. $260? Hold up. I could relive my childhood.
This is what my computer labs had in school.
Dudes. I think I want one.
I remember these compact Presarios. They were so...
Do not be surprised if a little Macintosh Plus lives right there one day. Do not be... I don't even have to have it turn on. I would love it for it to turn on, but like for now, maybe I just get one and have one. Let's see. 4 repair. So that one doesn't work.
I mean, if I was going to do something like that for myself, I would probably pick up a Gateway 2000 computer because that was my thing back as a child.
Yeah, this one was mine, man. Like, wow. Okay, so for $220, okay, $250 with shipping.
Shipping, yeah.
That's not that bad.
That's not that bad, dude.
For something vintage that works, it isn't bad.
It says it turns on. Okay, that says it doesn't know what the heck is going on. So it might not boot. I might have to figure out how to get it to boot.
Well, you can always look up Action Retro stuff for how to fix that.
That actually looks like it's promising, though, right? Because it actually gets to that. Yeah.
The stuff looks fairly clean too. Look at that keyboard. It doesn't have Cheeto dust in it.
I mean, look, man, Cheetos and Cheeto dust in keyboards wasn't a thing in the 80s.
Well, no, Cheetos existed, but you're right. I got in trouble if I took food into the computer room, so you're probably right.
Right, that stopped being a thing people got mad at me about in like the mid 2000s.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Where it was just normal to have computers, around
everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Laptops.
Because computers fell below the $1,000 mark in like 2004.
Yeah,
because I remember before that, like it was pretty normal for them to be $2,000 or more.
Yeah, I think some of the first ones I had were in the several $1,000 range. Yeah.
Let me see.
By the time you got the monitor and the computer, and then, well, of course, you had to have the dot matrix printer.
You were
all
easily
of
pushing 3,000 at that point.
yeah, you were up about $3,000 at that point.
That's close. So speaking of under $1,000, but the first laptop I bought was basically a powerful PC, and it was a Sony Vial. It was white, but the camera, you could flip it backwards. It was about in
Oh yeah, I
2005.
remember that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm looking for that particular model. I don't have it anymore. I got rid of that thing a long time ago. But that one was so cool. It was the first machine that I ever truly ran Ubuntu on. And that was around the year where you still had to go and configure your Xorg to allow widescreen implementation. Like
my.
it was still 4x3. It expected 4x3. And if you didn't have 4x3, well, I guess you're figuring it out. And
Oh my God.
better
Yeah,
believe
I
I
remember
did.
those.
Better believe I
Yeah.
did.
Well, even having 5x4, because I had 1280 by 1024, that was hard
Oh yeah,
because
that was an abnormal one. Yeah.
Yeah.
it was an abnormal resolution. And my first LCD monitor was a 5x4 aspect ratio monitor. And like, it was surprisingly difficult to actually get that to work.
Yeah, eventually I got really good at it. So, I mean, when I had to...
People don't realize how freaking lucky they are that things just work
Oh,
now.
I
now?
know.
Dude, you just...
Oh yeah. No, it's
Dude,
amazing.
I guess it must have been about the year 2000 or whatever. My computer science teacher handed me a Slackware 8 something maybe disc and was like, have fun. And I
That
sure
is a
did.
definite. Yeah. So
I
this is actually pretty close to. Oh wow, that is super yellow. Why can't I find one that doesn't look bad? There we go. Well,
It's
that's the.
hard though because I think they kind of came in a little. They had a little tint to them, and all you had to do was expose them to a little bit of UV, and
And they got worse.
they got really bad.
So this is basically this is not in good shape, but this is basically the computer I grew up using.
Oh, in that chat. There we go. Okay, here. Now I'm looking at it now. Sorry.
Look, man, I can't have Twitch and this going at the same
No,
time. This is too
I
hard.
totally get it. I totally... Because
Well,
you're
we're
still
just
running on that 2013 MacBook. I know. I get it.
searching in the right channel here for the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not actually that far off, Leo. I like it's not 2013, it's 2014, but yes.
Here we go. Now I got it. Now I got us on screen. Now we're looking at it. So
This is the picture of the Presario from earlier was basically what I had in my computer labs.
Yeah.
This Gateway was the computer I had at home.
Yeah, no, I had one real similar to that.
I loved that thing.
Make sure this
Very,
opens
very
up in
similar
the...
to that, actually.
It was also neat because it was Gateway was pretty cool about how they did their case design,
Look at that.
where you
Yep.
could pull the faceplate and rotate it, and you could turn it from pizza box to tower and back.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
I miss cases that did stuff like that. That was actually really nice. Although nowadays, like, you don't really need the pizza box form factor as much, but like, I still miss it for the nostalgia goggles.
Yeah, my dad worked at a place that the IT guy there just had like tons of computer parts and stuff, and he would just like, you got to buy the rest, but I'll start you out with a motherboard and a case and this and that, and he would just build you the rest of the machine too. So ours was a custom build, but I know this beige. That's the right beige.
It is definitely the right beige.
Oh yeah, nope, it is.
But yeah, like I upgraded that thing. I found Rambus RAM, which by the way was even...
Oh wow! Yeah,
yeah,
those had to be in pairs.
Yeah, those had to be in pairs, and they were Rambus.
And you needed you needed the spacer. You had to install the spacer to verify that all the slots worked or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, I hated those things.
Yep.
But I got it all the way up to 80 megs of RAM, which is unusual for a computer that was made in 1996.
Yeah, 64 was topping it out, baby.
Yeah, so I got it to 80 megs of RAM. I overclocked the processor. And overclocking back then meant doing weird things to the hardware to do it.
Yeah, definitely did. Yeah.
I installed a DVD drive and a CD writer drive. I upgraded. I went to an ATI what was it, an all-in-wonder card or something
Man,
like
I
an
never-
Yeah,
average?
probably.
I never
Yeah.
had a cool video card until way after 2000.
Yeah, well, this was around 2000 that I did all
Yeah.
this stuff. So like, so I had an all-in-wonder card. It ran Windows 98 Second Edition and Red Hat Linux in a dual boot.
Wow, that's really cool.
And
I think I had Windows 2000 and yeah, probably some
the
form of
machine originally came
Linux.
with Windows NT 4.0, but you can't do crap on Windows NT 4.
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
2000 was kind of great though.
yeah.
I can't remember the desktop I had, but my friend had this one right here, the Dell Dimension 4100, and it had a Pentium 3 on it, and it had the dual DVD drives like that because we would copy music CDs, man. I'd be like, oh, you got the new Limp Bizkit or whatever it was. I'm like, dude, can you
Oh
make
my
me a
God.
copy? And out popped the demo version of Nero Burning ROM, and you better believe, crank that all the way up to 8x, baby. We're gonna have this done in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Ah, God, I miss
Oh,
those
yeah.
days. Those were awesome.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, that's when you learned that if you did the full speed, you probably got errors in your
Right.
in your
Oh,
copy.
Von Nichols, he posted something today where it was a error message on Nero Burning ROM, 16x, and it failed. And I was like, yep, you got to go back to 8x for that.
8.
You
Yep.
gotta scale it back, man.
I remember when I was backing up CDs or ripping music from them, I had to go all the way down to 4x to make sure that
Yeah.
it was always correct.
Yeah.
Because and the drive was a 16x drive. It's like, oh man, going
Yeah.
all the way down to 4x, it's like literally quadruples the amount of time it takes to do this.
Yes.
I remember the
Yep.
last desktop that my mom ended up with before we just started getting away from, before we moved to DVD drives, really, was a 52x CD drive, right?
Yes.
And
Oh,
my
geez, yes,
God,
those.
you would
And you
find
could
out.
hear it. It sounded like it
Yes.
was going to take off, right?
Yes.
I mean, it sounded like an
It
airplane.
sounded like it was going to rip itself right out of your computer.
Yeah,
Well, that's my point, right? Like, you knew real quick which manufacturer wasn't quite centered, because on the 8x drives and stuff like that, like, your thing felt like a washing machine. Like, you would hear it
Little bit,
hum,
yep.
right? But on those 52x's, those discs would explode.
Yeah.
You couldn't spin them that
Yeah.
fast.
They,
I had
they
one.
weren't made for it, that's for sure.
Yep, I had one disc did that to me, and it was that DVD drive was gone. CD drive, it was over for that thing.
I bet.
But yeah, you could tell. You knew it was not going to end well, but I just didn't think to hit the eject button fast enough to prevent the explosion. Those were the days, though, man. Something closer to this. Maybe, no.
Oh, yeah, like right there.
Yeah, this
I
was
had one of those.
my friend
With the
before
gray
he got
front.
that Dell. He had this one. So, but it had to have been like a Pentium 2 or 3. So maybe they just kept the same case for a little bit.
Let me see. What was the first computer I bought for myself? Let's see. Dell Dimension.
Mine was a custom
Dude, you were
build.
getting a Dell.
Oh, I remember.
Dude,
I
you
was
were
looking
getting a
for that
Dell.
the other day. I can't remember why I was looking for that, but I was looking
my
for
first machine that I bought for myself, not something my parents had, was a Quantex, and that was a Pentium 60, I think, or 66, one or the
Yeah.
other, but just a straight up Pentium, and that was, I thought I had the world then. Let me tell you,
right.
that was
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
look
It
at
was
that.
fast.
That would have been
At
around
the time.
2000-ish, and the dude you're getting the Dell guy's got a paper with a monitor, keyboard, mouse, desktop speakers for $849. Yeah, this is when it just
Yeah, that's when the
exploded.
prices were plummeting, and
Yeah.
then that's when
Yeah.
everybody had one in their house.
And
at
this
that
is
point.
this was one of the precursors to just the insane vastness of the internet, right? When everybody's got a computer,
Mhm.
everybody can access it. When everybody can access it, we can advertise.
Yeah, it took them a minute to figure that out, but they did.
Hey, listen, I still remember the dancing baby and all the flashing advertisement gifs right next to it, okay? That was peak GeoCities time, and I appreciate it a lot.
So the first computer I ever paid for. So I did a bunch of odd jobs. I sold stuff.
Yep.
I raised money to pay for myself. Was a Dell Dimension 5100 with Windows
Wow.
XP Media Center Edition on it.
Wow.
And
it came with the
and
remote.
it was Yeah, it came with the remote. The remote worked for years and years and years. It
Yeah.
actually was the best part of the thing. And this was also like just before the analog to digital transition for cable
Yep.
TV.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I was recording with the DVR
Yes.
Yeah, you were.
on there, and I was able to watch stuff like on the computer, like because anime was at the late night, and I wasn't allowed to stay up that late, so I would set the DVR to record Inuyasha
hmm
and Case Closed and Ranma 1/2, and then I would watch it the next day rather than having to stay up the whole night.
Yep. Easy
Yep.
peasy. Was it a Hauppauge card?
Hoppage?
Is that how you say it?
I think it's
No
I
one,
think it's Hoppage.
no one can pronounce this. It's
I don't know,
what
probably.
language is that? French? I assumed
Uh,
it was.
Well, hoppage is an English word, and it's actually
Is it?
like named after. I mean, Hoppage is called Hoppage because it's headquartered in Hoppage, New York.
I was going to say, isn't it a town in New York?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop. Spell Yingling. Go. Exactly.
Y-I-N.
No, you already lost. It's Dan. What is it? Yeuinling.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
G-U.
Oh, I see. The opinion form.
Yeah. No.
So
This
that'd be
is the New Yaka form.
Yeah, well, so like no, that's the pinyin form. Like it's a derivative of the pinyin form. Yeungling.
Oh, the beer, right? This is the beer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is
Like,
what I mean
that's
about English doesn't make any sense. How do you know that it wasn't French, right? I'm
It's
just saying.
because somebody in England decided it would be fun to keep all the original spellings when they imported the words from other languages.
Exactly.
Which is a stupid rule. Like, don't keep the spellings exactly what the original language was, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to say, though, like, if you showed this word to someone that has learned English traditionally through schooling, right? You showed them that word, how would they pronounce it? And it would not be, what did you say?
Hoppage?
Hoppage. It wouldn't be hoppage. Hapagwe?
No, well, it would be.
Hapog.
I mean, technically, hoppage is supposed to be said hophog. That's the way.
So
it's
I
supposed to be
was
said.
super close.
You are close.
Okay.
Because it's freaking French, British, English.
There it
rules.
is.
Well, that's
right.
just
I
it.
knew it was French.
It's a town in New York, but I mean, obviously, there's another town somewhere in Europe that probably matches that.
Oh,
to be
yeah.
honest.
1,000%. Yeah. And this is coming from the state that has Smithtown. Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just
Isn't it called Smithen?
I'm sure it is because it's probably English. Like
Yeah,
over the ocean English. Yeah.
Well, like Worcestershire is Worcester.
You're right.
Listen, man, I just put the sauce on my meat. That is all I know. Okay.
That is actually the worst way you could have possibly said that.
So it's on
but
Long
it tastes
Island,
so
right?
good.
Yeah, it's just right off of Long. It's just right in the center of Long.
Yeah. Are we still talking
also,
about Hauppauge?
Hophog is also a Native American word. It's apparently derived from the word for meaning sweet waters. So it's not British.
Hey, I
Oh,
was
well,
born in
that's
that
interesting.
town.
It's just corrupted. That's all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we stole that nicely. Cool.
Yeah. That's America. That's just America.
It sure is.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's the English just in general too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
I mean, we
literally have a millennia of British people stealing stuff from everyone.
we learn from
yeah.
the best. What can I say? Quakertown.
But yeah.
Do Quakers live there?
No, that would be Pennsylvania.
Well,
Yeah, it is in Pennsylvania. That's where he was.
How close? Oh, it is. Yep. We are in Penn. Sure enough, you go down far enough.
You don't have to go far. Yeah, it's close.
Is
I haven't really thought of Hophog in like 10 plus years. Like actually.
Tribute.
Oh, Vizamp had it right. Yeah, that's the one. Yingling. I had the beer one time, and man, if you've ever drank a beer and ever thought, man, this tastes like corn. Well, that's the one. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
corn beer is not my favorite.
No, it is not. No, it
So
is
Zook
not.
says, not stealing. It's a tribute.
Right. Yeah, you bulldoze the
sure.
land and then call it whatever it used to be called.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hauppauge apparently used to have hot water springs, like actually, like
Yeah, before we
so.
contaminated it. Yeah,
Oh, I
probably.
mean, yeah. Well, I mean,
That's all the lakes these days, isn't it?
Mhm. Well, it's an
Well,
island, so I mean, it's probably the fresh,
fresh
water source.
poison.
Yeah, fresh water source at one point.
Oh
It's the
wow.
fresh poison.
These guys actually have one, and it says Plex Media Server in the description now. Okay.
Oh, they do.
th-
Yeah,
the
no, they're
re-
still making stuff.
Yeah,
They are.
yes. The reason I knew Hauppauge was because back in the day, I used to sell these TV capture cards, right? Right next to their AMD and NVIDIA counterparts. What was it? The NVIDIA
Oh,
GeForce.
I don't think NVIDIA had anything, but I know that ATI had the All-in-Wonder cards.
No.
I think
Right. I sold the All-in-Wonder cards. NVIDIA didn't have anything, but I was selling the GeForce 6600s and stuff. GT,
Oh
man.
my.
Yeah.
Oh
those-
yeah, the ones where they were ripping people off.
Oh,
That
of
one.
course, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
NVIDIA didn't get as big as it is by being honest. Come on. Anyway.
I mean, that's just depressing all by itself, but yes.
We're rolling back to the time when they actually did have open source drivers, and that was the card to pick.
Yeah.
Right, it was. Well, I
Sad
had a
times.
GT what was it?
I had like a 650, I think, a GT 650.
Yeah.
That was
Oh no,
pretty
I
good
had
stuff.
a Riva. I had a TNT. I had a Riva
Oh,
TNT.
okay.
Ah, yeah.
That was what came with my compact Presario, and I promptly replaced it with an ATI card because back then NVIDIA was the one that was bad at the
It
driver
was.
software. They
Yep.
were so bad at it that like ATI's Catalyst was better. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
they were both bad at it.
Yep.
This is
Well,
the
yeah.
problem. They were both bad at it. ATI was just slightly less bad.
Yeah, this was why I couldn't run Linux like on the desktop for a while. Just because the entire process. I mean, it's not that much better for NVIDIA now, but I mean, at least it's stable. If you don't touch it, just don't touch it. But getting it set up back in the day was absolute teeth pulling. And yeah, I just used Windows. I'm sad to say. Windows XP was fantastic. Windows 7 was yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty darn good. So I can't complain too much. I got
So
my
did you
games
guys build
played.
myth boxes?
I did Mythdora machines. I did have a
Ah.
Mythdora machine.
No surprise, I had a Mythbuntu machine. But
Sure, right. But they were
Same
both
thing.
they both came out at the same time, I think by
They did.
a similar group of people, right? Like
Yeah.
But yeah, I used Mythdora, Mythbuntu, because I was using Ubuntu, I was using Kubuntu actually back then on my machines, and I was I was using either Ubuntu or Kubuntu, depending on how I felt, on the media center computers, and then I started switching those to Mythdora because the 10-foot UI, because Unity didn't exist yet. So this is before Unity. So 10-foot UI, you hook up a computer to a TV screen, you probably want a 10-foot UI. And Myth TV was the first real example of one of those.
Yeah, it was pretty great, honestly, for back in the day. Yeah.
I think Myth TV is still actually developed.
I think it is still, but there's no like official flavors.
They made a release
by
7
anybody,
months
but
ago.
yeah.
Is that just so is Myth was Cody, right? Like is that not the same
No.
lineage?
Oh, no. Cody
No, not the
comes
same
from
lineage, but
XBMC.
Cody comes from the Xbox XBMC project.
Yeah.
Myth
Right.
predates XBMC.
yeah, before that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I never had a cool box like
Myth-
that.
It was
back
it
in
was
the
your
day.
media center TV thing, but
Right.
it was a computer running it.
Well, because
Yeah.
I only
and
really remember the Windows one because I sold it like to people,
Mm.
and I wanted to steal the remote, but I couldn't.
Oh, Myth TV apparently Myth TV had their 34th major release, version 34, like
on,
just February of this year. They're still
kidding.
going.
So what's
That's impressive.
it's all self-built stuff in the back there?
Yeah,
Wow.
Wow,
I
the
guess-
website looks the same as it did.
Sure
it does, right? Like,
Holy
it
cow.
literally looks exactly the same as
I
it
That
did
is
when
not
I first.
different at all.
I need my
No,
Intel
it is
Pentium
literally-
3 box so that I can go to this website and I can hear the hard drive clicking in the background.
That's how you know your computer's dying.
No joke.
Not back in the
I'm like-
day. Not back in the day. That's how you knew your hard
No,
drive was seeking.
No. If it was clicking, it was bad. If it was,
Like
just
a
humming.
grindy, churny sound. That's normal. That
That's
was
fine.
normal.
Clicks are bad, but
Well,
the
not-
grindy, churning sound was fine.
Right,
That's
right.
like head
That's,
impacting your platter.
oh
kinda
yeah,
bad.
no,
Right,
no,
that's
no,
the-
not
That's
the
the
head
platter
click.
bashing.
Yeah, not the head
the
click
head
of death.
Yeah. But like, I'm looking at the Myth TV website and I'm like, I'm on an ultra wide and this is like using so little of the screen real estate.
Oh
This is-
yeah, no,
Yeah, no, it's not a great
Mm.
website design. It's totally out of 1998.
I'm just saying. I guess like all of their interface designing goes into Myth itself and not the website.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
probably.
So first news article, May 15th, 2002 by Isaac.
Wow.
Got the simple web page up.
Here it is.
That-
And I bet
it's-
you it was this one. And then Isaac,
Seriously looks the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
Isaac
It is literally.
Isaac did the Homer Simpson, back into the bushes, never
Yep.
to be heard from again. That's why the website hasn't changed any. Nobody knows what they can move. And then when they tried that one time, you'll find the news article about it. The website was down for a day. When they tried that, they just reverted the changes and never changed it again.
Yep, restore from tape.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And that's it.
Nowadays, since Fedora has FFmpeg, we could probably ship Myth TV in the repos.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
might
heard
be
it
able
here
to,
first,
yeah.
folks. Neil has.
I did not commit to anything.
Spinning up another flavor. That's what he just said.
Yep.
Oh God, no! Look, man, I have my hands full with 3 flavors right now.
Listen,
I've got Fedora KDE, I've got Fedora Lexecute, and I got Fedora Miracle. I
and
don't
you're
need
about to
more right
have Myth Dora, and it's going to be great.
Someone will kill me if I call it Mythdora.
They probably would, yeah.
Uh,
That's still neat that they're still going though. Really,
Yeah.
that does say a
Oh,
lot.
it's a great project too. Like they did
Yeah.
a good job.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna go look it up. Is Mythdora still around? It
Oh,
says
is it? It used to be called that. There used to be a thing.
Yeah,
Oh
well,
my
there was an official flavor that was Mythbuntu.
Myth
Yeah.
Dora, Archive OS
So
is
Mythdora,
special.
Linux, yeah.
Specialized Linux distribution
and
based
Myth
on
TV.
Fedora, designed to simplify the installation of Myth TV on a home theater PC. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was back in the day, and yeah.
That's pretty
And
cool.
their last release was Mythdora 12.23. Wow, that was a
Yeah.
long time ago.
And every time I say the word Plex, someone always comes at me with Jellyfin or that other one. And I have to come back and say, well, I bought a lifetime subscription when they did it half price, like early on. So it was actually
So
kinda
did I.
cheap. So
I have a Plex. I have a Plex lifetime.
yeah,
sub.
so I'm just like a Plex guy because I own it. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. And they haven't booted me off for years. So I'm going to keep using it until they do that. And then I'm going to be sour about it. And now I use Jellyfin. But until then, I've been looking at that Hapagway TV tuner capture card thing, and just so I can stick an antenna on it, a powered antenna, so that I can pick up all the channels around here, maybe some of the ones from Dallas, and like just be able to record stuff sometimes.
you want the HD home run, I think.
Is that the one? That's the play?
Yeah, that's the one that's got the Ethernet port right on it. So then basically, you can put that box near where the antenna stuff is, and just drag a network cable to it.
So okay, so how do I connect this up to my Plex box?
Well, it just does it over the network.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
Oh, so I just tell
So-
Plex where this is, and then they do their network thing. They get
Yep.
married. They
Yep.
get
Sort of.
network married. That's cool.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort
Well,
of, yeah.
now you joked about my flavors things, but since the Fedora 41 beta came out, did you try any
I
of
need to. So that's like that just got announced today. Was that today?
That was
yeah,
today.
that was yesterday. 'Cause It was
Yesterday.
announced on Tuesdays.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ah. I just heard about it today. Okay. See,
Yeah.
that's
No,
what
I
that's what
mean,
you
it's on
get.
my
It was a worldwide release. It could have been when I was sleeping.
It's 10 a.m. Eastern on Tuesdays.
I was sleeping.
At 10 a.m. Eastern, at 9
I
a.m.
tried.
Central,
All right,
you were
so he's in
asleep.
Central. Yeah.
At 9 a.m. Central, you were asleep. You were not making yourself breakfast yet.
I was trying to sleep. No, that's one.
Okay.
That's wait. That was on Tuesday. No, I can't. I don't have the I work late that day excuse. No.
No, you don't.
So I guess I was up.
I was halfway through my day at that point.
Yeah, oof. You're an early bird,
Wait.
Dan. I can't do it. I've tried.
Yeah.
I was forced to try for years and years and years, and I could never do it. It never worked.
That's because
Yeah, no, the one that came out today was the Gnome 47 thing.
Yeah, that's the Gnome 47 announcement.
Oh, got it. Denver, because the old
yep.
the old get together Guadec is in Denver, right?
Yep, that
Yep.
was this year. Yes,
That's pretty cool.
so like, but Fedora 41 was announced. Was beta release was out on Tuesday.
Yep.
And it has all kinds of things. I think the thing that's the most interesting is LXQt 2.0.
Yes.
And Fedora Miracle.
Yeah, Miracle is a new spin.
Yes.
All right.
You
so
know, the thing that Canonical
makes
first came with.
Yeah. It's a mirror-based spin.
MB is the name of the other one that I couldn't think
Oh,
of.
NB and Jellyfin. Yeah, they're the two.
Okay. All right. So all right.
Jellyfin's a fork of NB.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because MB did the Plex thing. They went legit and started charging, and then Jellyfin guys were like, "Oh, I'm gonna fork it over here."
Graybeard. Yeah.
Fork you, MB.
Pretty much.
That happens so much. So okay. So I just need to look into this. How do you get them network married? Does Plex just search? Sends out a little love letter, a little love.
I don't know about. Yeah, I think there's a thing that you just pointed.
I'm gonna have to write a blog post about this one day. Plex send out a love packet, and Home Run HD Home Run found the packet in the gutter, and responded to the packet.
So there's different models there. Some of them, depending on how many tuners you want to, have active at the same time.
I only want one because all I want is my local channels when a tornado is about to crush my house. That's
but if you want to watch multiple local channels at the same time, you need multiple tuners.
Really?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I get that if it's coming from like True Cable, right? Because that's just how those boxes are. Right, but wait, so okay, because what I'm thinking of, like, I can buy multiple antennas, right? Like, so I could.
You don't need multiple antennas, though. You just need multiple tuners on the inside.
Oh, wait. So, wait. All right, this is getting confusing. So, if I have two HD home runs, only one of them.
You have one HD home run, but
one.
it's got multiple tuners on the inside of the box.
Oh, so wait. So there is multiple. Wait. Okay. No,
there's different models.
Still didn't click.
I think you've lost yourself.
I've blown his mind now. I've blown his mind.
All right,
how many things do you want to record at the same time?
Here
basically, is what it amounts to.
Well, let's say two. Okay, so the cheap one comes with two tuners.
Right, I think so.
I would connect one antenna, and it would allow me to watch two channels.
Two, correct.
Okay, so if I got the Ford one, that would allow me to watch.
You still have one antenna and four things.
Okay, because that's where I was breaking. I'm like, but the antenna grabs it all. Why would it be?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in the tuner.
It's split out on the inside, and it's got multiple tuners.
Okay. See, I don't know the words. I don't know the tuner words because I mean this is new to me, and I haven't bought anything yet, and I haven't realized that I bought the wrong thing. Right. Okay. All right. So I need the Home Run Scribe Duo.
Yeah, I guess if that's all you need, yeah.
Well, I would go cheaper. I would just go one tuner. Nobody in this house watches TV. They all watch Netflix, man. That or, whatever I've got on Plex.
Yeah, but when you get it on the Plex or the Jellyfin or whatever you got there, you don't know. They might want to be recording multiple things.
I definitely know because I've had the antenna directly connected to the TV for years and nobody cared. At all, ever.
No, but I'm just saying, once you start recording the programs, they'll watch it.
Yeah. Well, see, and then I'll just tell them that turns out you can't watch it live. I don't know what to tell you, man. You just have to wait until it's recorded, and then you can go watch it.
Well, that's the cool thing about this, though, is you can actually, like, Plex will broker that connection, if you will.
Right.
And so that you can watch it live.
Right. That's what I'm after. I'm after the live whatever, and because everybody else is watching Hulu, they won't care that I'm watching a soccer game, like at all.
Right.
So, this is mostly for me because I won't tell anybody I have it. And then they'll be like, well, how are you doing that? And I'm like, pirate streams?
Nope.
No, it's over the air.
That's right. That's right. I'll say that it's not on the up and up, but it really is. That's the secret. But with this, with the cheapest, lowest level model, I'll still have two. So
Yeah.
I can even let them do it. But okay,
You can
so
record one and watch one.
exactly. All right. So so I don't even have to use Plex on this. I can connect to the HD
You
home
don't.
run and then watch it directly.
Yep.
Okay, so I have the okay, but Plex is going to be the thing that allows me to leave my house, go 3 states over, and then still sneak in and
Yeah,
watch
you just-
local channels here.
Yes.
Cool. HD home run won't allow me to do that unless I do some cool WireGuard shenanigans or Tailscale or something.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I'm seeing why you need the 2 and why this makes sense. All right. So I'll probably
Well, you want
get
that one interface, right? I mean, you want the jellyfin or the
Yeah, I
Plex
just want the
interface
Plex.
so that
I
you
don't-
got one place to go. And that's the thing that's on the whatever, the Roku upstairs in the bedroom and your tuners downstairs.
Exactly. Right.
You
Because
don't care.
Because I do Rokus. My wife has recently, we were talking about this before, how Apple slowly crawls into your life, right? The wife recently just got an Apple TV, got that all set up and whatever. And I'm like, why would I use this over a Roku? And then I click the home button on the Roku and there's like 8 ads. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
That's why.
That makes sense. Makes sense real quick. So you prepay to not watch ads for an Apple TV.
Yeah,
That's how
kinda.
that's basically
Yeah.
how that works. And yeah, so we're getting more and more stuff. But up until recently, it's all been Roku everywhere, and I've got
Right.
the Plex app on it, and that's besides that Netflix and Hulu, and I think we had Disney for a little while. Oh, we have Peacock now because wrestling. I like to watch wrestling sometimes, and you get all of the pay-per-views for just the cost of the subscription, which is like $100 a month less than the pay-per-view used to cost. Did anybody ever actually buy a pay-per-view? Like UFC is even exorbitant.
Oh
now.
yeah, that stuff is silly.
It's
That's just
exorbitant.
There's no way I would ever pay for pay-per-view.
Well, see,
No.
and I'm the exact
Well,
same
it used
way.
to be a reason to invite your buddies over, and
Right.
everybody pitched in illegally, and
Sure,
you know,
then it made sense.
But
so that you split the bill on it, right?
But for
But pay-per-view was just ridiculously expensive. and it was
Yeah.
just
Oh,
not
yeah.
worth
Yeah.
it.
but for
No.
but now, if you're into wrestling, it's actually
It's-
worth it because it's $8.99 for Peacock, and you get all of Peacock, and then you
Yeah.
also get the pay-per-views because they're not pay-per-view anymore; they're just on Peacock live.
Wait, I mean, I pay for Peacock, I think, for not wrestling because that's
Yeah,
not
same.
my thing. I have it because that is where I can watch. Well, actually, I probably should stop paying for Peacock because
Yeah.
it's a pain in the butt to use it. But I paid for Peacock before because that's where I could watch things like Psych and
Right.
and some of the other
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
But,
but there's no extra cost to it.
No,
you just get
no,
the
no.
wrestling for free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the problem with Peacock is that it's a pain in the butt if you're a Linux user to use it.
Well,
Yes.
see, this Linux user uses a Roku on a TV, and I'd cut Linux out of the deal, honestly. It's just easier.
I don't have a television.
Oh. Well, see, I think there's got to be a way around that, right? Because Plex has all the apps. So you just get Plex. Don't even have to have a server. You just get Plex, and then you hook up the little app, and then it runs in its weird little Chromium box.
That doesn't work either because the problem is
Oh.
that it doesn't get Widevine L3, and that is what
Right.
Oh.
that's what Peacock requires.
All right, so
So the
we're
trick I used-
back to you getting an
The
iPad.
trick I used. Oh God, no. So the trick I used to use was I used to run Chrome and Wine,
Uh-huh.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
it would work. Now that doesn't work because I watched the Olympics that way a few
Right.
years ago, and then they shut that down hard.
Yeah.
So now that doesn't work.
Yeah, but also
Um,
Peacock. Like you could stream all of the Olympics in Peacock. So I mean,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
right,
Yep.
not you on your Linux device, but people.
Me on my
No, I know.
MacBook, I could.
There you go. See, so you're
I use my
basically
Fire
halfway
tablet.
to an iPad, man. Yeah, Fire tablet.
I am
That'll
not.
do.
I'm not doing the iPad.
No,
You
I
say
did the
that
Fire
now.
tablet. That's the the $20 workaround.
Well, now we're back to the
I mean-
Amazon privacy conversation again. Now.
Oh, it's not good. But I've had that for a while, so whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like my alternate would be I'd just use my phone and then plug it up to my monitor.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Which means I need to actually get a USB-C to HDMI or DisplayPort connector
Neil,
cable
what you need to
thing.
do is off to the side here, I have a second monitor. It's not really a second monitor. It's what I use to like run my Steam Deck through whenever I do the streams or whatever. It's a $60 1080p IPS display. And it's portable. It comes with a cool little iPad looking thing where you can kind of like
Yeah.
set it up and just hook the Roku up to that. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
the sound won't be
That would
great,
work.
but it would work, and it's kind of pretty
Well,
cheap.
Yeah, but like if you get, depending on which Roku you get, you can get
I
the
mean, if
one
the
with the earbuds
I mean, if
that go in the remote,
well, if any of
and
these devices support
then it's not bad.
detaching Bluetooth, if any of these devices support detaching Bluetooth audio,
Yeah,
then I
that
would
works.
just use my Bluetooth speaker because that's actually what I
Yep.
use anyway.
The higher end Rokus do allow you to do Bluetooth, yeah.
Yeah,
But
they do.
also so do the Apple TVs, but we're not going down that road.
I'm not going down that road.
And the
Yet.
Fire Stick does too. I
No,
mean, yeah,
never.
yeah, yeah.
The only reason for me to buy an Apple TV is if I wanted to watch Apple TV Plus, which I don't, and I don't care. So no.
No, you watch that on the Roku too.
You
Really?
I like Rokus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can
Wow.
watch Apple TV on your Roku.
Heck yeah,
Mhm.
man. I was
Neat.
watching I had the last year I had the MLS season pass or whatever, and I was watching on the Roku. Yeah.
My parents have a Roku. I've used it before. It's quite nice. I have
It's not
HBO
bad.
Max. My parents actually have my old television. And because when I moved up here, I just didn't bring the TV with me because I
Right.
couldn't, and I was afraid it would get damaged in transport because it was so thin.
Yeah.
So I left it with them. They bought a Roku, plugged it in, and then like they do HBO Max and stuff like that through that. So
I mean,
like the Roku experience perfectly fine. I just don't have a television to plug a Roku.
Right.
I won't tell you all of the streaming services that I have because I think I have all of them.
well, see, that's what
Wow.
happens when you got
Why
like
don't you buy a cable subscription at that point?
No, I'm not
That's
going
a
back.
great question.
We're not going back.
But
No,
I don't know.
it's
It's
a
not
good-
as flexible.
Well, no, the thing is, like a lot of cable subscriptions now bundle in all the streaming
They do.
services.
They
Yeah.
do now.
And so
yeah.
and it winds up being cheaper,
Yeah.
which is like the only reason I don't is because none of them ever include anime
Right.
streaming services, which is the bulk of what I actually stream.
What's funny
anime
is that
stuff.
you get Cartoon Network, which gives you Adult Swim, which also runs a lot of anime. So like,
But they don't get you all the anime like
right.
Crunchyroll does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I am forthright and upfront about I pay $20 a month for Crunchyroll.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the
Yeah,
bulk of what you watch, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Most of the other services I do pay for the other stuff, like I don't go to and the only other one that I pay nearly as much money is Disney Plus, and that's because all Doctor Who's on there, and so
Star Wars.
and I also like
That's
Disney
got me
stuff.
sucked in.
Yeah. Star Wars, dude.
And all the other offshoots of Star Wars. Yeah. No,
Right. Well, the
absolutely. I
Marvel
can't
and
stop.
Marvel and Doctor Who just got me, and plus like.
Yeah.
The whole back catalog of old Disney shows that I've loved, like
Mhm.
Lilo and Stitch, Kim Possible, the whole works, like
Mhm.
that's all there. And it's like every once in a while I want to watch that. It's like, oh, well, here, and it's great, and it comes in all the languages and the closed captioning and all that other stuff. And I don't have to look at my old Windows XP rips that are like from grainy analog TV at 480p.
Yeah.
I still have them.
Well, and I have the bundle, right? So then that gets me ESPN stuff, which makes my son happy because he likes sports. So
And I have Hulu as well, which gets me all of the back
Yeah.
catalog of the Warner Brothers stuff, which is
Yeah.
great. Like I don't do I actually would prefer if Disney Plus would give me a double play rather than a triple play where I didn't have to have ESPN. But I know why they're doing it this way. It's because ESPN's actually the most expensive of the three.
Right.
Oh,
yes.
and people
that's
don't wanna
always
pay
what
for
it was. That's exactly how all of those other junk channels got onto the cable subscription because that's what paid
we're
for
right
them.
back to that.
Yeah.
And no one wants to pay for the sports channels themselves because it doesn't seem like it makes sense to do. Because frankly, you only watch the sports channels at specific times rather than all the time. And so it just doesn't sound good unless you have all the other stuff to go with it.
Yep.
So it's just like,
Exactly.
I get it, but I literally don't even have the ESPN app installed on my phone.
Yeah,
This is how little I care about ESPN.
Yeah, because if you
He's
cared
a big
about
F1 fan, so like really that's the only place to get that stuff. And and they broadcast those things at weird times. So
well, because they're in France all the time.
Well, they're all over the world. Yeah, they really are. And so, they're all sorts of times.
Occasionally I like when FIFA rolls around, then I will watch. I actually tend to pull it up. like because I like watching the soccer stuff, but like beyond that, like I don't care.
Yeah, I've got to get into
Right.
weird streaming stuff if I want to get to actually watch Liga MX, which is the like Mexico and a couple of the surrounding countries that play in that league. You have to get like VIX. I didn't even know that was a thing.
What is
and
that?
Yeah, it's
I don't have that
Oh.
one. Sorry.
it's kind of like Pluto TV, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
so
Spanish language.
and has soccer on it because it's
Yeah.
Spanish language. We're all the same. But yes, so I wanted to get that. Now I have, and so there's VIX, and then there's like 2 others that that you can get a hold of other games, and they're all over the place. Their broadcasting is all weird and jacked up like ours is, where like some teams on some days play on ESPN 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
it's even more jacked up because like, what is it? Some of the teams for some of the games at some of the times will be on ESPN or on another channel or on another
Right.
thing, and it could be the same team being at a different game at a different time on a different network, and
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
just it's just really hard to follow. It's
Dude.
like this is why the only time I do it is during FIFA, because FIFA is special enough where all the games are on one channel and I can follow it continuously.
Well, this is my favorite. Speaking of Apple, but it has nothing to do with the hardware. This is my favorite thing about the MLS. So both the all of the Major League Soccer broadcasts and the Leagues Cup for one price on one channel every game.
Oh, that's actually quite nice.
That's nice.
Right. And that is something I'm not going to buy 8 channels and have to like figure out a schedule of what channel to have it on at what time to watch what. No. I have a couple of teams
it
I wanna
already
watch.
sounds bad.
Yeah.
That already sounds bad, right? Like,
yeah, one price, one channel. I can watch it all. That's all I really care
That is
about.
kinda nice.
I'm fine with that. That's great, and that's why I've gotten into the our soccer leagues because it's accessible. It's easy. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I was World Cup and I would watch Campeones League and just whatever I could catch, whenever I could catch it. But now I can watch.
I'll say that the Major League Soccer people, the teams are good. Like,
They are.
Yeah.
I am surprised. I'm impressed.
Yep. I have recently had that realization starting to watch, well, from last year, really. But then we also get all these players from all over the world. I mean, we basically do what England has done and then just pay millions and millions of dollars for people.
Well, we're good at that.
Yeah, right. We've done fantastic in that regard, right? We're doing it in basketball too, right? Like all of these Eastern European dudes,
football, like you name the sport, we've got it. Yep, we're pretty good at that.
Exactly, man. We're really good at paying people lots of money to do the thing, whatever it is.
Yep.
All right. On that sporty note, I guess I need to buy a home run HD, and we didn't even get to the topic we were going to talk about.
We had a
That's
topic.
all right. We talked about that in the show anyway.
Well, give me 2 minutes. So the thing that we talked about in the show were these Yubikeys, right? And how it was
that
Mission Impossible style thing that you had to do to be able to.
I literally listened to that yesterday while I was heading to bed. It was pretty.
Yeah.
Also, it demonstrates how freaking impossible it is to actually exploit the damn thing.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But here's why I wanted to talk about it today. It's actually harder than we described. So
Yeah.
it was.
As soon as I was listening to you yesterday, in the recording, I was like, I can think of a couple of flaws of what you were talking about. This is probably harder than you think it is.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
So Verbose brought it up in the Matrix, and he said, "Wait, don't you have to actually open them up too?" And I was like,
"Yeah, you do.
No,
you have to
Get
unseal
the
them,
circuits exposed,
right?"
Anyway,
And so I was like, "Do you actually? I don't remember reading that."
Yeah, you have to unseal them because otherwise, like, you don't have access to the necessary context to take the data out.
So you might be able to get better probes, but the idea with the thing is that I read the abstract and I was like, well, surely there's going to be enough in that. So ours had a write up, and I was like,
that's
a
very
good,
detailed, by the way.
Yep, starting point, and then I just browsed the abstract and I didn't see anything else. But if you scroll all the way down,
It's a big document.
hang on, let me make sure. Yeah, if you scroll all the way down, right here it is. So here's what you actually have to do. You have to crack the thing open. There's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can either slice it in half, or you can drill into the middle at a very specific point, and then you could place the probe on top of the thing, and then you can actually suck out the data that way. This makes it even worse because we were talking about, straight up Tom Cruise having to go in there and snatch it and then put it back just at the right time. But not only that.
No, you have to have it open and connected to pull the data out.
Exactly. And so that means that now
it's functionally impossible.
Exactly.
Now put it back together and make it look right.
Right. Not only do you have to be able to replace it without anybody knowing, you also have to be able to replace it in a way, fixed in such a way that you don't tip off the person that owns it. Because at that point, it's all hands on deck. It's time to replace this thing, right? Because if you're handy enough to have a Yubikey in the first place, you're handy enough to know what having a hole drilled into the middle of your thing might seem like. So there is a window of time as well. So a second window of time on top of the first window of time.
And the best part is this probably doesn't work on the Yubikey Nanos.
Right. So let me see which one.
Although those are a pain to actually take in and out of a computer.
Oh, the teeny tiny itty bitty one, right?
The tiny ones.
Yeah,
there's the ones that sit flush. The ones that sit flush into the computer case.
Right.
They have other limitations too, but definitely you're not cracking open one of those.
Yeah. So
if you crack one open, you're tearing it apart, and it's probably not going to work anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty much done.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's no replacing it. So your window of time is when they found out they don't have it anymore. So
that's why this thing had like a CVSS score of like 4.6 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a little. I think 4 is being
that's generous, but that's really low, right?
Right.
No, really, honestly, it probably should be like a 1 or a 2. This is freaking hard to execute on, and you're not gonna get complete data out unless you are really good at this.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to have so much going into it. You have to be able to steal the thing. You have to be able to, apparently rip the thing apart, and then
without damaging it.
Right. Right. And then you have to be able to spend $11,000 on the equipment to actually rip it apart. Man, so
it's not worth it.
It's not happening.
No,
not in any real wide context that anybody has to be worried about. This is just not happening.
I would not even expect nation states to do this because it's just too freaking hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and there's so many things that can go. So many things can go wrong here.
Yeah. And the fact that you had to have so much information going to it. Like if you already had that amount of information, there are other ways to get what you want. So, yeah. Oh, man. So, anyway, wanted to close on that because that was what we actually set out to talk about today. So, there we go. In 3 minutes, we talked about it and got it out there. So, anyway, that'll do it for us again on this live stream. I keep wanting to call these things release parties, right? Like,
well, they kind of are. We released an episode, so we're having a party.
Their episode on Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, we have our release party, and that's what this is. But I can never remember. Well, number one, I can never remember to tell people we're doing this, and number two, I can never remember what to actually call it a release party. But surprise, it's party time. The episode's out there. Go listen to it.
We'll have another one next week.
Yep. All right. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.
See ya.